Umaru, you sure you want to do that right now?
What is happening, folks? How are we getting on? May, welcome, and thank you very much for checking in there, Hooke. Thank you for checking on, even though you can't hear me. No, the ledger did appear. Should have appeared. I think it takes a wee second. They pop up there, and that's probably what the problem is. I had a bit of a streamer bot issue when I went live there. I have a button that starts a command that starts the whole starting sequence. Dina, welcome on. And for whatever reason, it just didn't do it. It just decided, nah, not going to work. Not going to work. I can see you, Hooke, having a massive head over there, but what else is new? What else is new? Oh, such a warm wild day today. So toasty. So toasty. What is happening, folks? How are we getting on? Me and Hooke are back to play some Resident Evil 6 tonight. I don't know when he's looking for me to come into his chat, but I shall see. Silence Leyoric? Tomahawk. How dare you, sir? How dare you? Do you mean I'm muted, or do you want to silence me?
7 minutes. 7 minutes is all I can spare to play with you.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm just reading that. Come in and chose violence. How dare... Baby steps really fucked you up, Tomahawk, didn't it? Baby steps really fucked you up. Oh, he's ready. Let's jump all over. Woo!
Hello?
I had a wonderful wee technical error there now, Hooke.
Right.
So
I seen your ledger, wasn't there?
No, the ledger.
Can't get
Ledger's
stuff.
grand.
Right, okay.
I have a button that I press, and it starts the whole sequence of the stream, and it just...
Yes.
StreamerBot had 8 items connected to 8, and everything's sweet. It just did nothing. It just was like, nah.
I seen you like this, because I can see Leyoric here and stream together in the other monitor, and he was like, I was like, why is he not live yet?
I was much confused. Uh,
Come in and choose violence. Did you get a chance to see in the clip I sent you, Leyoric? I owe you an apology. I looked at it today before I drove home from Dublin. I'm only just at my PC now, so I haven't added it for you. Sorry, as you're walking, but I promise it'll be there for Sunday when I'm live.
like he said
That's a
last
promise.
time, it won't happen again.
Exactly. I haven't forgot about you. I just seen it today.
But
The
what
prize
is
was
happening,
Roy
folks?
Clark.
How are we getting?
33 RPM vinyl. Oh, nice one. Good evening. What is happening, John Rambo? I'm all good. Got
It's the same thing. We
unique
always
code.
buy Hook in the Brain. Yes. Wait, which one am
I
I?
love it.
Which one am I? Am I
True.
Pinky or am I the Brain? Oh well,
True.
I must be the Brain, and if it's Hook in the Brain, so there you go. Zoinks, Hook. Zoinks.
This couldn't, because I got slammed with ads as I got in. No worries. Yeah, so that counting down at the start of the stream, me and Leyoric both do it. That's just to run our ads, get them
Yeah.
out of the way.
Clears up
Basically.
for the next hour then. Like,
Yeah. Right, Leyoric, I need a question of the day because I don't have a prepped for this week's stream because
right.
I'm
I
only
have a
just on the
question for you.
PC 5 minutes ago. Tell me about it.
Unless you've already done it before.
Go for it.
Best movie to video game adaptation.
I think I did it, but
Did you?
we'll allow it. We'll allow it. Let's see. We'll update it.
Or
I think we did it.
no, let me think.
Right. Have a wee think. I think we did that one. I think that was my first one. Folks, thank you for the check-ins.
Are hot dogs considered tacos? No.
Let's see. I'll update it
Hook,
to that one,
your
right.
thing's broke as well. It never gives me over 9,000. I think it's rigged.
I think yours is different. I need to fix it. Right. Best movie to game adaptation. I've now updated it. There we go. Folks, thank you for all the fucking check-ins. The boys are back in town. Crazy. What's happening?
What's a story? How we getting on? Hey, Hook, I have been getting a bit of grief this week. And
Rightly so. But why this time?
I think you might be getting a bit of grief too about this. See when
Oh,
someone cheers into your
Is it-
stream, what do you call the
Yes.
things that they send in?
butts.
Butts. That's what I said. But I've been getting grief
butts.
because of what I'm saying butts.
What's that sound like butts?
Butts, yeah, I'm much sad. So I've gone through my entire streaming career thanking people for giving me their butts. And it makes me sound like a weirdo.
Heck's sake, hey. Can't get the
I know.
staff.
Can't get the stuff. That's what's happening. Chrissy, what is happening? What is the story?
Right.
Let
Let's
me
see.
just check in. Oracle? I think not. I
Oh,
think not,
Oracle.
sir. Oracle. Yeah, so I think everything's
Let me check.
working. I think everything's working.
So I do have a wee announcement if you'll humor me with 2 minutes to
Yeah,
chat
work
about
away.
it as well. You've probably all seen it in our Discord. So if you're new here, I did it before Christmas. I did Hooke Kringle. So basically the way it works is every bit, every sub. So like if you're just subbing anyway, I'm not asking you to give. I swear I'm not asking you to give. It's just any that you do give. No, any that you do give, whatever my cut does, gets added to a total. When I did it before Christmas for Hooke Kringle, we then give it back to the community. So there was 350 raised. We did 100, 150 to 3 people. This time it's going to Aware NI, which is a mental health charity. Here is what my thinking is, and I'm going to run it to the end of August. So any bits or any subs. So if you're a sub anyway and it just renews, then your cut is just going to go into that total. However, I have added coffee to it, or Ko-fi, whatever you want to call it. So at any time, if you type !! total in my chat, you can see it here, and it should pop up in the shared chat as well. I did backdate it for this month. That is wrong. No, that's
Can't
right.
get the
That's right. I
stop.
fixed it. Yeah.
Jeepers. My goodness sake.
Look at this. What?
Bits, butts, and coconuts.
What? Chrissy, Tina, thank you very much for the Prime sub. That is very kind. Thank you
Oh,
kindly. I really
thought
do
Tom
appreciate
Huck-
it. And look,
we
the total
sub 'em-
updated in
sub-
real time.
Subbing with the Prime as well.
Folks, thank you very much. That is awfully kind. So I'll drop the coffee link at the moment in a minute in chat. This is just to raise money for charity because we can all speak to mental health. Of course we can. I have the wee finger. I'm not giving these the fingers, I promise.
Jesus.
But I have the wee tattoo here, my finger. If I can get, yeah, you see it? It's like an apostrophe, which is for mental health. However, the reason I started doing this is because we had, hey, thank you for the butts. Fucking legend. McKen's, thank you for the 15 streak as well.
Pronounce it properly. It's
Teddy
butts.
Surgery had this idea. It's butts. Thank you for the butts, me. Thank you for the butts. So Teddy Surgery had this idea a while ago. He was like, "You should do something and get a funny, like a tattoo off of it."
Thank you, May, for
So-
the butts.
There you go. I do have an idea. So I have a routine. I didn't hear no bell, which is Randy Marsh from South Park. I'm going to get that with the text if we meet the goal. So the goal is 200. If we meet the goal, I'll pay for the tattoo myself. Like I'm not taking about the budget. I'm not forward head. I'll pay for it myself. The budget obviously go to charity. But that's the goal. If I hit the goal, the 200, I'll get that tattoo. The meaning behind it will be for mental health, of course. But it's also a bit of humor with it. So just so you know, that's just going to be running in the background. So anytime someone subs or bits or something like that, it'll pop up and tell you in chat what the current total is. Just so you're aware. And now I'll shut up about it from this point on. So Leyoric, thank you for letting me take the floor there for a second.
No
Appreciate
worries. McKin, thank you
gonna-
very much for the sub 32 months. I appreciate you. I wrote it down because you were
32
chatting
months.
away and I didn't want to interrupt you there because it was actually quite a serious topic and a very, very good one as well.
Appreciate it.
I have
Oh,
spelt
thank you so
subscribed
much.
wrong. My God. What shenanigans
no.
was I up there? Maybe I just like the two B's. Maybe because I'm a big fan of Shakespeare. Two B's or not two B's? That's the question. I don't know. Look at me getting all philosophical.
Right, did I miss anything? While I was chinwagging. McKen's, how are you? McKen's hurt his ankle today. He has an appointment for the hospital in the morning. Critter. How are you, dude? Let's see. Did I miss anything else?
There he is.
No. Chrissy Tina, thank you very much again for the sub. I agree, it's a fantastic idea. We've all had struggles with mental health, or we know someone who has. So that's where it's come from. Right. I'll shut up now, I promise. I'm just going to get the
Butts.
coffee and I can pan it.
Butts.
Mm.
You're right, there's two B's. Am I subscribed? Thank you, Tomahawk. I was such a fool. Lim Flam Bamalam, what's happening? What's the story?
Contributions. Let's see if I can spell now. Contributions.
You must have said, if I had money, I would have been a TTS. What? God, have you gone insane? Hooke is walking in the woods in Ireland. He sees a strangely dressed duck. He wants to fight the duck. Leyoric says, don't do it. That duck is a quack shot. A quack a rat. You'll get your ass kicked. The only thing that terrifies me about ducks is
Roger,
how
nuts.
expensive they are. It's because of the bills. Because of the bills.
We have a shared hype train going, folks. Thank you so much.
We do.
These are very
These are all super generous. Thank you so much for thank you for the subs and thank you for the bots.
Yes.
So
Ooh,
you're
happy
not getting
Irishman. Happy Irishman, you're not a kick in the arse off your next evolution. You're Super Saiyan 1, but you're not a kick in the arse off the next one, I have to say.
I don't know what
Ain't
any of
too
this
bad.
is. I don't know what it means.
The check-ins, sorry, on my stream. The whole Super Saiyan
I know
level, because
I
you've
know
not
I know
watched
about the
Dragon Ball, you
check-ins.
were
I
good.
just don't know about the levels. I don't know about the levels. Watch a good show. Watch Bleach. You know, watch a cool anime. Watch what little cool
Watch
kids do.
Bleach. Fair
Watch
enough.
Bleach.
Look at that. Look. Super Saiyan 1. Richards, nice one. You just made Kaioken. You did. You did indeed. Ain't too bad. I have mango elevated and ice on it to reduce the swell. Nah, good man, McKenzie.
Did you hurt yourself?
That's rough when you hurt.
What were you
He
doing?
did.
Was
He
it
went
work?
over his ankle.
Ooh. Oh, no good.
Have you had
no
an
good.
accident at work? Right, sweet. That was everything I wanted to bang on. But I think I have a. This is a wee tip you might like, Lurk, and you might steal for yourself.
Ho ho
So
ho
Steven
ho.
Streamer.
Buy me a drink first.
Steven Streamerbot opens for me. I have it open in a notepad file that I've called Stream Prep. So I'll randomly write things in there that I've like either changed or need to talk about or something like that. I used to do that at the very start when I started streaming, and then I stopped doing it for the longest time. And I brought it back again, and it's well
For the
handy.
longest time.
So it's a good idea.
Whoa.
Um,
Do you know? I was actually going to bring up something to you earlier before we started streaming, and I thought, no, I'm just going to actually say it on stream as well. Do you remember when I was
Go ahead,
playing
yeah.
Grand Blue Fantasy? And I was like, oh,
Yes.
the expansion comes out in July. Oh, I'm looking forward to that. Oh, I'm looking forward to that. It came out, and I was like, oh, I'm going to see if I can buy it. Maybe get a wee physical copy. I'm all about that physical these days. And I was like, 50 quid. The quid's decent, hey. You know, physical 50 quid for Grand Blue Fantasy and the expansion.
Physical?
It's lethal. No, it's not. It's just the expansion. 50 fucking sponderoos, hey.
Just for the expansion?
I know. Sammy
Gotcha.
Dabby
He absolutely gotcha.
he was chatting to me the other day about it, and he was saying that they got you. Oh, I've trained you well. I'm proud of you, son. I'm proud of you, son.
Yeah, I'm evolving. Bye.
Sammy Dabby brought it up, and I was like, I don't think it's too expensive. And then I went and looked at it, and I was like, nah, I'm going to wait until it comes down in price. Not buying that. 50 quid.
But the quad's mad for a DLC. Like, unless it's like World of Warcraft level expansion back in the day. That's
But
a
even
bit
at that,
mad.
they were like 35. You know, they weren't 50 quid.
No. I know they were 35. They were 29 at the night sometimes as well. Did I get my Bankai at Super Saiyan 2? Yes.
Happy Irish. That's why you're the best. That's why you're the best. You get me. You get me. Talking about his Bankai up in here.
Rolled my ankle while walking. It's my subconscious was trying to prevent me from having to go to work. Yeah, I get that. Although I work from home, so if I ever roll my ankle, I'm just going to be in the house crying in pain.
Do you know I like this?
No.
Put my head in between my knees and fall forward. That's just how I roll.
Get this house. That's a new game on PC. I know. Here on PC, you go right. Tell you what, go to Xbox store and pick like a recent title, or go to PlayStation store and pick a recent title. Recent enough, like say God of War Ragnarok and something else that's Xbox only, and then go to Steam. Drastically cheaper on Steam.
Yeah.
All the time.
Actually, McKins, if you want to relive
All the
some
time.
trauma, go buy that game Baby Steps. Tomahawk was streaming it the other night.
That's funny.
And that man did not have a good time. He was an unhappy character, and it was so funny. I was so entertained by it.
But I'm going to
you just-
read you this message. Bear with me. Go ahead.
No worries.
Go ahead. Keep chatting. You're all right.
If it's cheaper on Steam, it's more likely cheaper on Loaded as well. That is true. That is true. But the thing I don't like about Loaded is you can't like gift things to people. You know, you can't like, unless you send them the code. It's not as nice. It's not as personable. Oh yeah, the arc. I'm a king. Kaiser is how I roll. Huh? Rod, I don't get it, and I think I'm being a silly sausage here. I can just buy it and give them the code. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, but it's not as cool. Not as cool seeing that you've been gifted a game.
Right. Sorry to spam that, folks. It's just I had a typo on it, so I figured I'd redo it.
Typo? You wouldn't see me have a typo. You wouldn't. Oh,
Backlash.
Backlash.
Lamesh, what's
At
happening?
backlash.
Hey, backlash.
Backlash.
Right, I forgot I don't have a drink, Leyoric. I'm just going to go
Backlash.
away here in my stream. So say what you want about me.
I dropped my mute on you.
Backlash.
I'm going to go get a glass of water so you can.
Run.
If you're in my stream, enjoy listening to Leyoric for a second.
At
Run.
backlash.
As fast as your little legs can
At
carry you. You
backlash.
can't even hear me. You can't even hear me. I don't even know why I'm saying it. Backlash. You don't have bread Kaiser rolls there? I've never heard of a bread Kaiser roll. What's a bread Kaiser roll? Is it delicious? Watch your ankles. Definitely. See, McKins has been a babyface in wrestling his entire life, and he decided just to turn heel. Uncle Blanche! Yo, 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 yo. What is happening? We were in Mike's Discord the other day as well, and we were all kind of chilling out. I seen he's in today as well. It's like a kind of chill work from home kind of thing where everybody just sits in a Discord thing and chat shite. And it was me, Uncle Flange, Hooke. I think Pops was there as well. That was a good time. It was a good time. I enjoyed it. It's a large bread roll, often with some seed and sesame. I have never heard of that. I want to try this. I need food. I need food. Hooke's left us say nice things about him and then delete the comments so you never know. Tomahawk, you're onto something. He is a genuinely nice person. He is very thoughtful. He thinks about other people. He's actually quite funny. He's smart. He's very good with tech. He's a great problem solver. Going to have to get all this shit out before he comes back. He's who I want to be when I grow up. He's a good dad. So fucking Hooke, dickhead, what an asshole. Hate him. Oh, sorry, there he is. Oh, Hooke, I never even seen you there. Jesus. I didn't mean for you to hear all that.
I'm back.
Don't look at the bod.
Definitely didn't say anything about you.
I didn't mention you. I didn't know you were gone. I was just chatting about DBD.
Oh.
So if you play Dead by Daylight, there's a
Postal service?
hook that people get stuck on, and I hate that hook.
Yeah. Flange. Evening. He does love my hooks. Yes, I agree. I'm catching up in chat here. What am I?
Sorry, is Hook streaming? When's he not? Actually, no, he streams the least. No, the Hook is streaming. Yeah, that's the thing.
I only stream 2 days a week, right? Don't make me feel bad enough about it, right?
I think you feel
Flange,
great.
what is happening? What is happening, you handsome devil? Good to see you. Welcome in. I laughed at Mike taking the piss out of Flange's voice the other day in that call.
Oh, it was
Like
funny. I
was
mentioned
fun.
that as well. The fact we're all chilling, kind of in that voice chat. It was a good crack.
Hmm.
Good time.
I do like that. Like there was a few folks that don't stream anymore, unfortunately, but I used to watch. That would have done like those co-working type of streams where you could be in a Discord call or whatever, but they were just chilling, but they were streaming rather than just being a Discord call. They were
Actually,
good.
it's not a bad idea working from home and kind of doing that a couple of days a week
Mm, it's a bit
and
of company.
chatting.
Like, so
Good
you
shit.
can mute and be like, right, it's focus time. Like, one of them did, like, I think it was called Pomodoro or something. Chat can correct me if I'm wrong. But basically, they had a timer on screen, and it was like, right, it's 30 minutes focus time. I won't
Oh, it's
interact
quite
with you
good.
outside of those 30 minutes. So you can work for 30 minutes, and then we'll take a break after 30 minutes.
Waffle. Rare Waffle 666 has 6 has just signed a
There he
ledger.
is. What's happening, sir?
And do you
Co-working streams.
do you know
You've
what we
done
love?
those?
Do you know what we love
Ah,
more than pancakes? Do you know
waffles.
what we love more than pancakes? Waffles. Say something in chat. Say something in chat. Don't make me look stupid here. You make me look dumb. You make me look stupid. Say something in chat. Quick. Quick.
Because
I see
waffles
why you're
are
doing it. There we go. There we
better
go.
than pancakes.
You never let me down.
I
You
see
never let
now
me
why you're
down,
doing it.
Waffles. You gorgeous man. Or the sexy man.
I've worked out it's this light that makes my head shiny, by the way, the one over here. I
I'm the
need to get
bald
a
one.
diffuser on it
Why are you the one with the shiny head?
because my forehead's massive. I was born with 2 foreheads and 2 chins,
If I
unfortunately.
streamed while
You
doing
know?
it, I'd get fucking nothing done. May's done it before co-working streams. Kept making one more productive. It helps making one be more productive, at least me. Yeah, I suppose it's kind of a good social thing as well, isn't it, really? It depends who's
Don't
there.
blame the light. It did. It was 5 originally. How did we skip the 8? That doesn't make sense. What's
Actually,
sick?
looking at that, how the fuck are you so shiny and I'm not?
And you know what the best thing about it was? I just had a cold shower before I came out for stream, so it's not even sun cream. I can't blame sun cream this week.
Your skin glistens like a pregnant woman.
It is.
My God,
And
man.
it's like it's not even oily. I just don't get it. Don't get it.
Man,
Look pregnant. He's absolutely glowing.
Take an Uber from his head.
He's
These
an Uber
eyebrows.
from his-
No. Come on.
No, come on.
No.
No.
There. No. Hey. No.
In the head. Brilliant. Actually, that's a fair shout. When it's cool and Phil's back inside, it could be an animal stream going. We could just watch Phil. That is a good
Yeah,
shout.
Mike put on anime the other day when everyone was working as well. It was really cool.
Nice,
Soul
don't forget.
11, which was even better. Yo.
I think dewy is the correct term to describe your skin. It's usually dry. That's the mad thing about it. It's only when I'm streaming.
No.
What
What do you
I don't know why I
say?
keep slapping my head. It's not for good luck or
No.
something.
No.
But like,
Yeah.
I'm not
Skin
gonna
it
get
damage
makes me
will
look
fix
Tell
that.
me
sweaty
that.
when I'm not. Like,
What do
I'm
you say?
not sweating at all. That's the thing that annoys me about it. Apart from that, I wouldn't care. Because if I turn off this light, hold on.
My camera for Cleo has moved and it's just moved a picture of Cleo.
See,
Here you go, pups.
now we have mood lighting. Shiny and red. But look, it's this light over here that's causing it. So I need to get a diffuser on that because it's just a raw fucking bulb.
There we go.
Well, it's not a bulb, it's a
Thomas,
Shaky
thank you
light.
for redeeming the treat for Cleo. Paint the forehead green and streaming Dark Souls on it.
Flashback.
That's the only way to do it. Or go beige and we'll go for Xbox 360 third person
I'll make it
shooter.
darker. I have squats to do. Fuck's sake. We only have an hour left in this game, by the way, I think.
Well, I don't think we're getting it done. You're chatting too much.
Well, that too. That too. I'm looking at my notes to make sure there's anything else I had to mention. There isn't. Sweet.
It's because I love Cleo the most, Tomahawk. I can't even blame you for that because she is fucking phenomenal, isn't she? Look at her. Look at her. She's fucking majestic. That's kind of weird, though, because I'm watching on my screen Cleo, you just being awesome, and then fucking dickhead over there bumping up and down. Can't get the staff. That's the problem. Have you played the game yet? No, we have not. I'm sitting here in the main menu waiting on fucking Seesaw over there. Is Hooke just his boxers? He might. Actually, I think he is. Hooke, what you doing? What you do? Are those your pajama bottoms? Yeah. Are they Teddy's pajama bottoms? Oh, is that the Halo tattoo? Nice. She's adorable. Are you talking about Cleo or are you talking about Hooke? Should they just replace the She's looking at me. They just replace the Hooke cam with the Cleo cam. In his boxers, there's big boy bedtime pants.
They're Lightning McQueen shorts, right? And I went to the wardrobe
Ciao.
and I got them out. And Mrs. Hook was all, you wore them in the last stream as well. And I was all, they're comfortable, right? Leave me alone.
You walk out in the bedroom at night and just go, ka-chow, ka-chow, ka-chow.
Roasting now. Just be like, good chewing, good chow. Turn right to go left. She's all, I'm on bed trying to go to sleep. Shut the fuck up.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Wow. I have that as command, do I not? I think I do. Hold on.
You probably do. But I thought Leyoric
I
would
do.
have been better influence on. Not a fucking chance. Not. Have you met me? Have you met me? My God. Oh, right. Game.
Isn't young to chow how you make children?
It is. It is.
Yes.
That's the best way to do it.
It's just frowned upon.
By
Oh,
every
thank-
woman in the world. Ka-chow.
Flange, thank you for the butts, dude. What is that cursed emote? What the fuck?
Oh, which one is
Right,
it?
game time. Game time. Game time.
Oh,
It's
the wee
flange
one.
and then up seductively.
Oh, I enjoyed that. That was so much fun. Right. Video game.
Yes. I'll send you an invite now. Hold your horses, would you?
3 years later, Hooke and Leyoric still hadn't finished Resident Evil 6.
I need to send you an invite. Where are you? Where's Steam? Do. Right, I need to get onto the actual game first before I can send you an invite. Okay, campaign. Continue.
Campaign Day.
Blame Dex. It's cursed. It's fucking cursed. Right,
Is that Dexter Nova?
Let's see. Nope, not yet.
Oh, see that?
Flamash. Dude, what are you at?
It's for
You
charity.
absolute madman. Dude, thank you for the 10 fucking butts. You nupper.
What?
That
GG,
is so
much well
kind.
done.
Man, thank you. Thank you very much. That is going straight to charity. You absolute legend. Now, it should give you the total in chat, but at any time, if you're ever curious, you can do ! total. So we're currently at 47.30. So obviously, a sub costs like a fiver or whatever, but Twitch only gives you like £2, essentially, just over £2. So that's, I've it worked out to take what I would give on a sub.
Oh,
Is what
look at that.
updates the thing.
Just looking through the names, some people got some subs, and more importantly, made it. So there we go. Happy days. Victory.
Love it. May and Flange. Got one as well. Sexy got one
Well,
as well. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Flange.
Love it.
Meh.
Lovely people.
Meh.
Flamash, thank you very
Meh.
much.
No, I'm
dude.
joking.
That is
Love you,
very
Flange.
We do love Flange. We do.
Fucking love that Phil Eyebrows one.
Because it's just him. You can just see him doing it.
They said a name in Irish. I'm wondering if it's old-fashioned.
10
no
bits,
one's
that's
really
super-
named
what?
it today. Oh, you would be surprised in Ireland. Definitely.
What am I?
Rod's
Oh.
reading the book, and there's an Irish name, and he's wondering if it's old-fashioned and would people be named it today. A lot of the old Irish names are coming back.
Right, okay. That's what I was just about to say. The general sort of consensus.
Jesus
Right, I've
fucking
sent you an
Christ,
invite there.
Flange. Thank you for the
What?
butts. But
Oh.
my God, I can't unsee it now. I can't unsee
Oh, I
it.
see it now. You don't see it in shared chat. I forgot about that.
Oh,
Right, okay.
your thing said thanks for the 10 butts rather than 10 subs.
My message did.
Uh,
Oh, what?
you're scamming Flim Flam Bamalam. How dare you, sir? How dare you?
Thank
He's a
you
generous
so much
man.
for subscribing. I really appreciate it, is what I see. Wait, what was broke?
Do you know of any brown one? I do not. Apart from my Weetabix in the morning, like.
Hold on a minute. It says Ko-Fi. Did I forget to reset Ko-Fi? I wonder. Hold on. I'll send you an invite there.
Evil
Guess you're wondering now.
6, the endless game.
Yeah, I forgot to reset Ko-Fi. That's all right. I'll reset it later. Did you get the invite?
Yeah, just clicking on it now.
Grand. That'll do. No, I
That'll
said
do,
it myself.
donkey. That'll do.
Okay. Oh, shit. I had start by mistake. Before you
I'm
loaded
awaiting
in,
a
I think.
reply from the Hooke.
Yet. Yeah, sorry. It's took me on under the game. Hold on, hold on.
Hit this house. No, it says joining us, Helena.
No,
Ready?
I'm sorry.
What's happening?
I don't have the brains.
Oh shit, you just joined as I ended the session. McKenz! Dude!
Oh.
What are you at? Thank you very
Did I-
much for the
did I
follow,
exit,
so-
yeah?
Yeah, go for it. I had back out there. Sorry. Because it was the delay.
Ooh, Lola
Ooh.
Blue, B.O.W.s Winter, and Riku. All got subs.
Yep, Riku as well. Dude, thank you so much, McKenz. That is very fucking kind. You absolute legend. Very, very kind. Reddy, how are you feeling, by the way? We haven't seen Reddy live in ages now. Like, he was fucking smashing and entertaining us with Final Fantasy X, and then he goes and disappears off the face of the earth.
He's an
How
unwell
dare you get
man.
sick? McKenz, thank you, dude. And
Wait, did
Flemish,
that happen to
thank
you a few
very
weeks
much.
ago?
Me?
He died
With
for
a
like
cough?
4 weeks.
I got absolutely... We annihilated, the three of us. We're
Was,
so
it,
sick.
was it, was it,
Like
was it
a
just
month.
7 days that you didn't stream then? So you had
Not
a week
7 days
off?
today.
You had a week off? Week off? Week off?
No. No. I missed 2, I think, didn't I?
That's a week.
No, that's for me,
Off.
yeah.
There's
That's
like
true. That's true.
99% there. I was going to stream today, but the heat was exasperating a little bit. The cough that's left. Son of a bitch, that 1%. That's how you always get you in end up. It's
Yeah,
that 1%, isn't
It
it?
is fucking warm. Like, I have this wee fan blowing on me. And, like, that's what it does in this wee office of mine. 28 degrees.
Don't you worry, babes. You have a big fan over here.
Right, I'll send you an invite here. Sorry about that. Let's see. May,
I had money
thank
free
you very
since I
much for
stopped
gifting
paying
us all.
Leyoric to be your friend. He is actually growing to like you.
Cheeky faker. May, thank you very, very much.
Thank
I
you very
appreciate
much.
that. That is so
Anybody that's
kind.
not following me as well, absolute legend of a streamer. Really, really good
Yeah.
one.
Mid-May through Leyoric. Lovely, lovely.
Yeah, May
have to
rated
say.
Injure in Resident Evil 2. Really, really funny. Really really lovely community over there as well.
And then May changed their name on Twitch and sent me a whisper one time to just sort of chat. And I was like, who the fuck is that?
I do it all the time,
I
dude.
sent me Leyoric a message, being all, who is this? Is it a bot? Why is my camera not focused? Just realized.
Hey, why are you not
There we go.
focused?
There we go. Oof. Right, generally going to get AC installed in the winter. I am going to at least buy a portable AC. That's for sure. Blurry Hooke is the best hook. The camera's never done that before. Must be the shine in my head, making it reflective. And may nice wee badge and all now. Said your name too. What's 28 degrees in American? It is...
Type it into my chat and it'll tell you.
Oh, aye, so it does. 28C in his chat will tell you. 82.6, just to be a spoiler. 82.6. Far away, Blurry Hook would be better.
Oh, it doesn't actually read my own message. Right, okay. 48.2.8 freedom units.
82.4, there we go. Did you
I
get
realised-
that invite yet?
Yeah. Nothing's come up though.
Right, I'll try
Send
again.
another one because it's not loading me in. Just on the
Invite
main
again.
menu.
Right.
There we
Send
go,
it
it's
again.
doing something.
See if you get it. You can show me how to make a home AC system. Alright, I'd be interested. I'll bite.
Boom, 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 boom. I realised that
You
I
know
had to
what?
actually get that command to ignore me because otherwise it keeps repeating itself over and over and over again.
All the way.
Because it reads what it's just put on.
Right.
So why
You
is
know
it
what
not
I
taking me home?
thought about? You know what I thought about today? When we were growing up in the 90s, and everybody in chat will probably remember this, everybody had ceiling fans in their house. No, it was they waft all the smoke away. Or
I
like
didn't.
create a smoke tornado. Aye. Ceiling fans were so common. Like, I could do with one of them now. Heck, cool me down.
I gotta go to convert part of my garage into a podcast stream. Alright, okay, very good. That'd be kind of cool.
Ouchie. That bad, Tomahawk?
Come on. I got you.
How bad are we talking? Like, could you not, like, DIY?
My granny in England has one. Reddy has a granny in England. He's doxed. We know all about him. We know all his stuff.
There we go. Yep.
What I find funny is I go into Lazy's chat and I slag him off from being from Larne, and he does the same thing to me. And Reddy is now involved in the Larnage. None of us are from Larne.
No.
Not one of us. We're just disparaging the city of Larne for no reason.
Leon.
Leon!
Again, thank you for the... My controller's not connected. What? Hold on. Battery.
Jesus Christ, Hooke. Such a professional. I don't know why you're saying that way. Leon doesn't do anything. And why are they all targeting me?
Acclaimed MMORPG Final
Oh, it's
Fantasy
Teddy.
14,
That's Teddy.
with an expanded free trial, which you can play through the entirety of A Realm Reborn and the award-winning Heaven's Ward, Stormblood and Shadowbringers expansions up to level 83 with no restrictions on playtime.
Teddy, thank you for checking, dude. Good.
Is this what it's like?
What's
Is this what it's like to play single player with really shit AI? The AI can't find its controller.
There we go. I'm back. Sorry about that.
Damn
Teddy,
it!
thank you for checking as well. Ready to go, KO Ken. Nice.
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 What's up? I'm going to be
I'm gonna
heavy
be heavy
lurking for a while. Not a problem, sir.
No bother. Where are you?
Teddy,
Right,
you can
there
do
you are.
whatever you want.
Right, so we need to go this way, Leyoric. Yep.
You can just sneak the Kabakai needy.
Leon, do you hear me? Are you all
What?
right?
Exactly.
I've got a feeling things are about to
I just
Just
got
fall
fault
through
in
the
the
house.
ass. No, I just got whacked. Cake, thank you for the 5 hit. Got somebody redeem the leaderboard on my stream. Actually, I want to see who's top now. And
Until Legolas comes on, it might be me.
it might be you, yeah. Might be.
But I only got
somebody might get
6,000 today, so I'm really unhappy about it. Yeah, Legolas is like
What is
1,000
going on,
behind me.
Oh, my controls are all messed up.
That's what happened to me last time, man.
I can't turn.
And if you turn.
Oh, leaderboard. Never touch a board. Let alone lead it. Me, clearly. Nope. Leoric's top, Legolas, Richards, Happy Irishman, and Tomahawk. We just need somebody to get a wee Zenzu bean, hey, and they'll be laughing. My camera just keeps, like, spinning straight up under the air. So weird. Right. I'll make do. It'll be fine. No worries on
Why
the
did we
Teddy,
stop
stuff.
last time? I think we made it the city, didn't we?
We did. We were past this point. I can't lock down the shit.
Have you tried not being
Every time I
lame?
shit, my camera goes flying up in the air. Hold on. What? That's a Ko-Fi donation. Doesn't say how much. Dude, thank you very much for buying me a cup of tea.
Oh,
It says Ryan. So I'm gonna go out on the limb here and say who it is on chat, but I don't want to dox him.
You just docs ready? For God's sake.
I didn't say his name. You did.
It was you!
I didn't say ready. Go back and watch the VOD. I didn't say ready.
No, you
Really,
just said
that
his
was
real name.
So kind, man. I did not. I said Ryan, but I didn't say who the actual person was. You did.
You know, it doesn't really matter because he says it on his own stream anyway. Like,
That's true. Dude, thank you so much. That is awfully kind. Awfully kind. Thank you, man. So generous. The rare time I agree with Hooke. See? Hell can't freeze over.
don't you speak Spanish to me?
Just need the bank details now. And hey, guy, what is happening? What is happening? Just need the bank details.
Just
I'm
be
gonna get
all,
them.
Ryan, is your thing 10024 blah blah blah?
How dare you say my name is Ryan even though it's in my bio? That is very kind, man. Thank you.
Spell socks really fast. SCOKS. What? SCOKS?
Yes, just
Or
keep going to that
SOCKS? Nope, never mind. SOCKS.
Oh, is this like a Scottish thing, maybe? There's a few things that Scottish people say that's hilarious with how they say it.
Aye, like curly whirly. Cuddly welly.
Aye.
Or purple burglar alarm. Purple burglar alarm.
Purple burglar alarm, that's a classic. Where am I meant to go here?
You gotta speak faster than that.
Turn camera. Where am I meant to go?
I don't know where you are meant to go.
This way? Nope. I feel like it's on top of that car, but I can't get up.
There we go.
Can't
There's
see.
a guy coming.
Ah, there we go. That's what it was.
It says ready crash now. I know.
Oh, did you fix it, really? These controls being messed up as a bloody nightmare.
That's what happened to me that one time. I just switched to mouse and keyboard.
I'm not doing mouse and keyboard. Fuck it, it'll be too awkward. I'll
You're
just
too
put up
awkward.
it.
And I guy, what's happening? What's the story?
There, for my own protection, it's really cracking. Even though it says Ryan in your bio.
I didn't know it says
Oh,
Ryan.
thank
I
you.
actually don't
Thank
care. Also, I'm
Pretty
vain
sure
and
it was
want
I.
people to know that why they're for charity.
You die.
Reddy, you are the most important
Yeah.
person for charity that we know. How did that? How did that happen?
you get blown up.
Would be the first time.
You're like, oh shucks, I didn't want anyone to know it was me.
Why does it say it's
That's how you
from
die.
Ryan Reddy Crash, that guy on Twitch? Follow me at twitch.com/Reddy Crash.
I didn't know you could fit that many characters in the name.
Well, he is quite the character. Like,
That's true.
why is it going on the menu? My controller's not connected. That's what's wrong. Why is it not connected?
Oh, for God's sake. These Resident Evil games and the controllers.
It's
Hope
just
are
this
well. We feckin' are. We feckin' are.
battery issues.
Oh,
it's
did somebody run out of batteries here?
Couldn't have been
Somebody run out
fully
of batteries
charged.
here?
Hold on. Pause the game.
Oh,
Pause it.
mine. Mine still died. Can't pause.
Well, we're connected again.
Twitch Tester Magoo. This is roughly how many characters you can fit. That is a fantastic username.
That is it. You know what? You make a good point.
Love it. Love it. I have a funny
Yes,
story.
well, handy.
So I know someone called Leyoric, and one time he changed his bot account to Mrs. Mailbox, and it got stuck as that for a month.
It was for a whole fucking month. It was phenomenal.
Yep.
It was the Annoy Musty, and it really backfired on me.
Oh, it worked.
Sure, I remember I changed it to that name, that serial killer, just to get you the chat away to him.
He does shit.
Hook went through
Don't know
a
a way to
period
do
of
this.
talking about how much he loved serial killers, and everybody.
No. The only way to do this is to add TTV to your government name. Never see it coming. No. There was a period where Leyoric and Annihilator
Waffles,
and Waffles
Chris.
Chris went through a serious, like, I don't know, period of tricking me into thinking Twitch chatters and like random people on like Wikipedia and stuff, or like just online, were like people that they knew or their grandparents or something like that, and they were serial killers. They tricked me every time. Little shits.
Oh, it was lovely. It was just, you were all,
Took up the point where I'd never open a
what was
link
your
again.
granda like and all? I started talking about the Irish helping the Mexicans and some civil war and stuff, and you were like, oh, fair play, your granda must have been a good man.
That's right.
It's all because one time you mixed up and you said, oh, Ted Bundy, man's a legend, and we were all, that's Al Bundy.
That's it.
We're all, oh, you're right, oh, shit.
Well, like, you know, controversial, like, but it might be a legend to somebody. Like, you never know.
Why are you agreeing with that? Right, don't die.
Joking. What do you have to do?
Took us too trusting tales.
Oh.
I don't know. You're the one getting the control.
There we go. Quick time event. I absolutely hate quick time events. In case I didn't say it enough last stream, hate them.
Do you hate quick time events? You never mention it.
Hook, you're good. You're a good one. Don't let anyone say it elsewise. Resident Evil 6 may be fun, but it actually sucks. Dust Razor, what is happening? Welcome back. It is good to see you. And I appreciate that. Very much so. Are you well? Resident Evil fun, I think, is co-op fun, but not single-player fun. Is my best guess.
Pull up. Pull up. Pull up.
There we go. I got it. Just more
Pull up.
quick time events.
My
Fantastic.
keyboard is acting up. I had to plug the USB out and back in again. Took me longer than I should have. I couldn't see that lead because of where the cable Hook used to keep everything all neat. Hook, you son of a bitch, you're at it again.
I cable tied everything to his desk, you see.
Rawr, 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 rawr.
Rah, rah, rah. Oh, I have to shoot him, that's right. Oh, right, okay, press on button. There we go. Quick time event. I forgot, of course. Bollocks, I missed. You may die here.
Alright. He really fell for me
Okay.
there.
I'm gonna break
Also,
my controller.
England
All
has
stupid
scored.
quick time crap. Did you get your keyboard sorted, McKenzie? Was the cable just loose or is it breaking? Hooke is too trusting for this word. I am very, like, I can be,
Gullible.
maybe naive is the word. Gullible.
You're the guy,
maybe,
if I
is-
pointed and said
yeah.
somewhere at gullible on that wall, you would look.
Oh, yeah. Not a big way. Yeah. Gullible's probably the right word. Bonk.
Oh, we're shattering expectations here now.
Oh, shit.
Breaking the glass ceiling.
Break
I'm
the
a hockey
balls
and
down.
baseball girl. They are two sports I have never
Ooh.
watched. Although we do have apparently a pretty good hockey team.
So my
The
button
Belfast Giants?
prompts on screen. So we do, actually. You're right. My button prompts on screen there are now mouse and keyboard inputs for some reason.
Your face is a mouse and
Fantastic.
keyboard input.
Yeah, that's true. Hockey
Co-op.
and baseball.
Co-op, war wearing in your head. Solo is a crap game, but you have a charming co-player. Is that me?
I do.
That's right. You talk about me. Talk about me. You say
you
nice
press
things to
B?
me. I'm chatting. I'm chatting. I got a compliment and I feel all good about myself.
I compliment you all the time. You don't take me on.
Feel right.
Yeah, but that's because you want to try and steal hugs. You have an ulterior motive.
Well, that's true. But I'm still giving you a compliment.
I am not a huggy man. Thou shalt not get hugs.
Well, I don't know. You're very huggable. Co-op
Yeah.
makes it horrible, but it doesn't make it good. It's better than 5. Got it sorted. It wasn't this, so just hope taking it out and putting it back in will fix it. Good old
That's how babies
take
are
it in,
made,
take it out, or
McKenzie.
turn it off and on again. Yeah, that is true. And saying ka-chow is tomahawk.
Ka-chow.
Said earlier. He would know he has multiple children, as far as I know.
Oh, that mustache, 100%, 100%. The man is
Aye.
gorgeous.
He has that 70s vibe to him, doesn't he? With that mustache.
Definitely.
Handsome devil.
I wanted to shave my beard and the handlebar mustache, but I don't know if I could pull it off. Well, obviously I can't pull it off. I'd have to shave it, but you know what I mean. I'm too
for God's sake.
untrusting for that. The first time I see someone, they have a probation period in which there's something to say shit and I can't trust it. Oh, are we still in the
okay.
probation period, guy? You know, where are we? What level are we at? What is our check-in level?
No
at the
fun
moment?
at parties.
Guy! Exclamation mark!
That's not a
Fire.
bad thing.
Now you're a past.
Nice. Nice.
I'm one of the cool kids now.
See, my problem is I could talk to anybody. You put me in a room with anybody and I'll find something to talk about.
Do you remember at a recent wedding, me and you got stuck with, Phil, shouting at us?
Yes. About the cost of diesel.
Annihilator and Waffles just walked away. I mean, you're sitting up and going, we don't care.
Back for more.
And he was like, sure, you know yourselves. Like, oh, you know the diesel. And we were like, we work from home.
And he was all, how can a man live on $3,000 a week? And we're like, oh, wait, you earn more than me I do in a month.
$3,000 a week. I said, I'll fucking give it to me. I'll not complain at all. Oh, there he is.
Surprised Tom has any kids. How could Tom resist a tickle? Oh no. Just can't get kids that way.
I can't get kids that way.
Rah, rah.
Folks, thank yous again for the generosity, by the way. Very, very kind.
Use that bastard's blood to make the virus stronger.
Exactly. I didn't want to do a link,
friends on the other side.
but I guess you could do that.
No one's gonna miss you here.
Big stretch goal is a real tattoo. All of our names on him. Yes.
Nope.
My
Tiger.
actual hook. No, if you're doing that, you have to use my legal name, Shaniqua Monfufu.
Right, this is going to be brutal when my control's been messed up.
But my controls are fine,
T-Rex?
so it's alright. Yes.
What the fuck?
He's a dinosaur. Rawr.
Right, there's explosive barrels everywhere. Can I use keyboard?
I've got eaten.
Now, the only problem is I don't know how to change weapon on keyboard.
Did you
mouse.
shoot it? I'm getting
Probably
it.
could, but I'm trying to figure out how to change weapon. There we go. There you go. G for some reason.
GG.
Is lot of that T-Rex? So random.
Utah.
Must have been... Now he's when we can hurt him, I'm going to guess.
Yep.
Oh, of course I have to reload. Come on. Right, it's going to evolve again. Right, I'm on keyboard and mouse here. So, we'll see how this goes.
He's a Charizard now. Oh, fuck, he is.
Salt rifle.
He's a fucking Charizard.
Here, fucking. He must have known Sam Neill died this weekend. Eh?
Oh, Hooke, that's not. Why is it eating me again?
There you go.
No! Did you?
You need an RPG or something. That's what we need.
Well, like Final Fantasy.
Yeah. Oh, thankfully he has a soft spot in his mouth. That's good.
Yep, it is.
Well, that's convenient.
Well, you're a snack there. Then you stop telling me them compliments. I'll come over and get you.
Giddy. Oh, this is.
Oh.
Look, we're just going to chase the car.
Thank you very much, folks, for coming and checking on. Happy Irish. Cloud Bus. And there's an actual bus.
Cloud what, man? Cloud Bus is rebranded recently, folks. Used to be Latency on Twitch, and is now doing all of his branding and his art and basically MS Paint, and it is the funniest thing I've ever seen. I absolutely love it.
Why
But
is
he
it
just
eating
eats
me
you.
again? Oh, no, it wasn't. Fuck, I was about to kick off. I was like, why you?
I thought he had you
Yes,
too.
welcome on. Thank you for checking in. Ooh, look at that party. Oh, these are very close to beating the boss now. Big boss. Gah! Do a barrel roll. Art is my passion.
Well, okay, art is my passion. I don't know you're streaming tonight. I can't mind to go outside and paint because it was cooler than my office. I respect that, dude. We usually did it on a Tuesday night, but I was away seeing Breaking Benjamin in Dublin last night with Mrs. Hooke.
Well,
which
did
was
they break all the
fantastic.
Benjamins?
Here, they did. And you know what he also did? He brought out... So his son is also called Ben and is like 10 years old. And has obviously finished school for the summer or whatever. So for the European part of the tour, so France, Ireland, and then England, he's on tour with them. So he was on stage beside him the entire time last night helping to sing the song.
Did they happen to sing Michael Jackson Ben at all? Because if not, it's a missed opportunity.
That would have been good.
Could we blow up
What's
this thing?
the Frontier date?
No.
Yes. I'm sure we could, but probably just not yet. I wager he's going to bite it or something, is what's going to happen. Oh shit, he's throwing cars at us now.
Right, they did the helicopter.
Whoa! Run! I feel like I'm not I wouldn't shoot it when I stood next to it. Well, that's true. Provoking it, aren't I? But I feel like I'm not really contributing here.
Well, then
I
I am
think
waiting for him
we're
to
gonna
walk
blow
over here so that I can explode him. Sir?
Waiting for him to open his mouth here. Come on, open, open.
Got him.
Oh yeah. Oh, beat his ass. Well done.
I did this last time too.
No. Hey, run. What's my melee button? Oops, let's see. It's not X. Is that his dodge? V, B, no idea. No idea. No idea. How's Breaking Benjamin? Oh, McKinn's. Honestly, like, I says to Mrs. Hook, right? We've been to concerts in the past for, like, say, artists and Mrs. Hook. Premier Deluxe.
Shall we say the
And I see
rarest
people there and they
gym
are
badge
absolutely
pants
in their element. Like, losing their
up.
shit.
You usually find them
That
somewhere
was me
making
last night,
dad
Breaking
jokes,
Benjamin.
you know?
It is a bucket list
Yeah,
item.
but like you're one
Ian,
of those,
welcome
like,
on.
shiny
Sure,
ones
there's
that
himself.
everyone has because
What's
they were,
happening,
like,
sir?
in a
Ian,
special drop
what's
event or
happening,
something
handsome?
like that, you know?
Ian, tomorrow Ian is doing a 12-hour stream.
He is.
People,
That's
go
right.
drop Ian a follow and check him. The man
Yes.
has a voice of velvet.
Much agree. Much agree.
It's like the Tato and the Kerrygold were melded into one and dropped down his throat. And you won't know until you go on and check them out.
What's wrong?
Not at all, Ian. Not at all. I'm very much looking forward to it, I have to say.
Let's go.
So I am working for Pum tomorrow, so I get to check it out.
So am I.
And then, all going to plan, May is looking to do a stream of Resident Evil Code Veronica on Friday during the day too, which is going to be cool. Because I haven't seen that one yet. That's the one I've seen nothing about.
Yeah, same actually. I've not seen anything of Code Veronica myself. Cool.
And McKinn's is going to do a stream of his ankle healing, and we're always checking it out. 12 hours, my man. I'm in.
Held together with String and Hope.
You were having internet
Hopefully no
problems, but I
more,
think you got it. I think you got it
yeah.
sussed as of yesterday. So everything seemed to go well yesterday, so that looked good.
Was
You're
there a
fucking
further
smashing it,
development? I know there was like the whole socket went and damaged the TV and all that jazz, wasn't it?
I think last time I was checking, there was an issue with one side, the sockets on one side of the house.
Yeah, so there would be a phase, isn't it? Like one phase, I think, is what they call them.
It's been a domino effect of nonsense. That is wonderful. Wonderful. That's the way we all are, though, because fuck, sure, my streamer bot wouldn't work when I started stream. The actual button to start my stream wouldn't work, and I was like, no, I don't want them to do it manually. It's all set on timers.
You did all that T-Rex fight, by the way. I have to say.
See if you ever feel bad about yourself, if you ever feel sad, if you ever feel down, just picture a T-Rex with its wee tiny arms trying to fold a bedsheet. It just makes me feel better.
Jesus, are we in that lift? Holy shit.
Oh, things have escalated.
How
How cool's Leon? How cool's Leon's hair?
I know.
Most of the
If only we'd
processing
have
power in
put
this
Leon.
game goes into animating his hair.
He's right, you know. He is
I'm
right.
allowed to be right twice a year, and that was one of them.
All right.
Wouldn't recommend looking down.
Oh, why am I falling?
Wasn't planning to.
Oh,
I have no
why
idea.
is she straddling Leon? Get off our Leon. Perfect.
Probably keyboard and
Spider-Man.
mouse.
Spider-Man. Does whatever
This is pretty
a
cool.
Spider-Man does. What?
This is pretty cool. Like, what a
Fingers crossed
cinematic.
That doesn't happen again.
What have
Launches
you?
a water balloon at the internet. Why, Rod? Why would you do this? Why would you do this? That will make his internet problems even worse. Oh, there's our
Yeah,
Ada!
fighting him.
There's Ada, there she is. Oh,
There she is.
there's
Right.
Ada herself. Let's go over and save her.
Guess it's not over between those two.
It looks like she's got it. She'll bear it.
I'd offer a hand if I could spare one.
Just feeling spicy today. Rod woke up and chose violence.
Chance.
I'm ruined.
Love how we're climbing and watching her at the same time. Ada and her shoulders of steel.
Oh no. It would rip
Like
the
that,
shoulder out of the socket, wouldn't it?
Oh, 100%.
Hurry!
Nope, adds in a minute's time. Yours are already running, actually.
Are they? There we go. No, mine's are a minute and
That's enough climbing.
a bit. Right. I have a
yours
shotgun,
are a
really.
minute,
That's
whatever
all I
as
have.
well. Oh, there's people behind us.
Zombies!
That's me. Right, can I get my controller working yet? I wonder. Let's see.
Okay.
Hold on. Because I'd much prefer to be using controller here.
Are we supposed to be going somewhere?
I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know. I think we're meant to shoot, are we?
Ah, but
No.
it seems like a bit of a distance away. Like I have a sniper, like, but
I used to have a sniper, but I don't right now. Shotgun, semi-auto.
I'll lend you mine. Get it? Get it? Because it's the lens. It's the lens and the sniper rifle.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, question, Ian. When you're off on your own, do you eat bread? What? What a question.
The gluten kind. We're gluten for punishment. That's the problem. The problem, Rod.
So maybe we can just shoot this guy.
There must be a way to climb over. Because this is just a little bit silly. No, we just
I
need
don't
to
know
wait.
what my heal button is now. Ah, there we go.
It's 6-7.
Come on, Leon. Catch up.
Always get stuck with the bus.
I'm on keyboard and mouse yet. Cheeky bitch. Tell me to catch up. Oh, we're falling. Yeah, usually we pause for ads, folks, but these games haven't really lent well for it, so...
They kind of explode.
Ads?
No, the games explode if you pause or do anything out of the ordinary. If you
They
look
do, yeah.
sideways at it, or if you wear like a red t-shirt.
They're so
They don't
buggy.
take it well.
Like, my controller disconnected, so it's like, yeah, your control scheme's now fucked.
Shoot him now.
Space and R, seriously.
I don't remember this being part of Final Fantasy. Oh no, it is. This is Tifa and Cloud. And we're climbing up the Shinra
Oh, yeah.
building.
You know what makes
And
me laugh?
that
The
over
fact
there
this
is-
guy's called Summons.
That over there is
Hold on.
Earth, and I think she's going to be okay, you know. I think I'll be fine.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. For Earth's and all the Final Fantasies, you know.
Although she was a bit cheeky to your man Sephiroth, and then he got a bit sharper, so, you know, don't know how it's going with it.
Well, you know.
Can I jump down? I don't think I can.
Not if I can help it.
Oh, of course, I have to reload.
Come on, wake up. If you're really Ada, I know you can pull through this. We both can.
Look at all that lovely ammo.
Now what am I meant to do? Just stand here
I
and
think
shoot
you
this
fight
thing?
it, and I shoot it.
I think I just got shot.
I was just resting my eyes.
You shouldn't sleep on the job.
In case you haven't noticed, Simmons doesn't take rejection well.
Is there some
He
bad
doesn't take rejection well.
Nothing worthwhile.
Right, there was ammo up here.
Oh, fuck.
What the fuck happened there?
You alright?
Yep, yep.
Sir? Don't run away from me.
Shit. Did not mean to get a remote bomb out.
Or maybe you did.
Oh shit, there's one straight for me. Yep,
The dinosaur.
damn it. Run. Right, do you have a better weapon? Sorry chat, I cannot keep up properly with this game.
Ah, don't
always
worry
feel bad
about
about
it. You're grand. Yeah! Batman! Batman!
I'm assuming this is just like a bullet sponge exercise.
I think so. There we go. It looks a bit productive. Go over and hit him. Hit him till he dies from it.
I don't know what my melee button is.
Melee! Melee!
Oh, it'll beat me to it. Okay.
Boom, boom, boom,
And I'm back in
boom.
controller because this is too awkward. Yeah, sorry folks. Again, it's just a boss fight, of course.
You should be sorry.
Every time I fire, it spins my camera around 180. Right.
Don't see why I can't get down.
Did
here.
nothing.
Let me down. Let me join in the fight.
Where's my shotgun? There it is.
Bum, 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 bum,
Is there a weak spot
bum.
or something? I feel like we're missing something here.
Everything, I think, probably. Cutscene.
Oh, you just knocked me off the edge. I bet you this entire thing's just like a fucking weighted.
Could be. Like Mr. X was at the end of thing. How the fuck did you get over there?
Just kick him off the edge.
I'm shooting at him. Ada, go get him. Yeehaw.
I know, she's just standing there. There's nothing I can do here, by the way.
Simmons.
Ah, no, come on. We've been shooting him. Rock bottom. We've been shooting him for like ages. And she stabs him with a bit of rebar.
Yeah, but it was because of all the chilies that we had earlier. We couldn't do that.
Well,
Hole. It's because we didn't have an arrow. We didn't have an arrow.
didn't have an arrow. I'll give you that one. That's good. Right, there we go. Ah. Hooke has increased ads until morale improves. Exactly, Cloud.
Why are you helping us?
Wish I could stay longer, but I've got to run.
Why did she text him? She's right there.
On the roof.
I know. So mysterious.
On the road.
And when did she type that? She just pressed one button. She had that pre-stored. Weirdly enough.
Text me back, hon. Hope you're well, XX.
What are you waiting for?
Can't answer now at meeting.
No.
She lined up. What a diva. I know. Such
I
drama.
agree.
Such drama.
Helena looks jealous here. Is that what she's called again?
Yeah, I think we all are though, aren't we?
I have Leona.
100%.
Wish I had a big text from him. There we go. Right, there's no way Simmons is dead just from that, of course.
This is a boss arena if I've ever seen one.
Oh, yeah.
There's our ticket
Get to
out
the
of here.
chopper. Now. Who are you? Put the cookie down.
Go, go, go.
Oh, that's not good.
See, told you. He's going to absorb them or something, isn't he? Oh, no.
Oh,
never
they've all
mind.
been fired.
Oh, shit, they're all Transformers.
One shall stand, one shall fall. Why throw away your life so recklessly?
See, he's like a mixed. He's like Cell, and also you don't know what you wouldn't understand Cell because you've not watched Dragon Ball. You would have.
Hey, I've done Microsoft Excel. I know what Excel is.
Doesn't quit, does he?
But you don't know what VLOOKUP is? Fuck you.
I do know what a VLOOKUP is. Excuse me.
Fish knows what a VLOOKUP is.
I'm sure they saved a room for you
Right,
in
I still
hell.
don't know what the melee button is. Oh, just left click. Nice. Whoa, what the fuck? So there's a button there beside him.
It's a door, I think. And I know this because I'm a door explorer.
Oh. What'd you do?
Cell shading going on here. Oh!
Hey.
Oh, that's weird. That's weird.
Are they eating him?
They are. They are.
Okay. Fair enough, so. Go, go, go.
Let's get resources before we go up upstairs.
Ah, true. You get resources. I'll run. Get to the chopper. I can't do Yarny.
Why did they sound Pakistani there?
I don't know.
Gotta get to that helicopter.
I can't do Yarny, that's for sure.
And the sooner the better.
Get to the heliport. Okay.
It's important
Some boxes
to get there. I don't know if we're ready for this heli.
I don't think so either. It's just another you need my help moment. V to help.
I don't think you're ready
More
for
items
this heli.
No, we need an RPG.
Well, like Grand Blue Fantasy and its new DLC that launched today.
Yeah. Not for 50 quid, we don't.
Up you go.
Had you?
Up. What the fuck? He's like a
Holy
bat.
shit.
Huh? He's,
I have
he's
the
like
knife.
flinging shit at us.
Where's Harvey?
Dr. Fishy, no.
Get out of here.
Got it.
Ah, for fuck's sake.
You alright?
He's a giant fucking bee. Or beetle.
We'll just tell him to behave himself. Oh, you son of a gun.
What happened? What happened there?
He just punched me.
Alright. That'll do it, alright. Not many ammo. Reload. This boss is batshit crazy. Huh?
I wouldn't know.
Oh,
Whatever you're doing, it's working.
Whatever
nice.
I'm doing is working, yes.
The range on the shotgun is fantastic.
Oh, shit.
Oh, that's going to hit me. No. Oh, fuck, he's flying. Whoa! Jesus!
Elena,
Any shotgun again?
going on?
Hold on. I'll take care of it.
Get out of here. Go away. Stop shitting on me. Literally.
Why is everybody shit on
fact-
me? Is it because I lied and said I was 6'3"?
Are you Flemish?
I lie on government forms.
I'm sorry, Flemish. I'm only joking.
Leon, you're all clear. Get out.
Leon! He had wings. He's going to fly back up.
Drinking Red Bull. Son of a
I need
bitch.
ammo now after all that fucking shenanigans.
Here, I can't open this gate by myself because I'm weak,
Oh.
apparently.
I know. There's a reason.
Need some water for that thing. I don't think a drink of water is going to fix him. But you know what, we'll give it a go.
Swatter. Yeah. He's a bit of a unit. Skill points there. Ah, fucking. Fuck. I don't figure out how to.
All right,
use
hurry. Gotta get that kid.
these. Combine, exit,
frickin'.
space.
Do you do them noises? Was Joe Pesci trying his hardest not to curse?
Is that what it was?
Oh, apparently he had a really fight it because he curses quite a bit in real life.
Them noises are amazing.
Frickin'.
Ah, shit. He's going to absorb more people here.
We tried to go hard on Friday. I stay home this weekend usually. Ooh, right, okay, fair play.
Aye, fair play. Ah, sweet. There's loads of target points now for us. Happy days. Good job, Simmons.
We need to ground this asshole. As long as he's airborne, we're not going anywhere.
Why does he have lightning attacks?
I'll be damned if I'm gonna
I don't know.
What
I
do we
don't know how to heal.
what do we do?
I don't know what my heal button is. Oh, no, I don't control here.
Don't mention the word heal in front of McKenn's per man's hurt. Oh, fucker. Yeah. Batman. Joe Pepsi had to say that. Joe Pepsi.
Right, we need to ground him, it says. I'm not sure what
Right,
we
go
need
to your
do
room.
there to-
Does that work? Shooter!
Right, okay. What's on here? Oh, shit. That's a weak
I
point
take it.
for us.
Oh, no.
Ah,
Oh, no.
nice.
Oh, he did himself a disservice. Oh, no.
Yeah, this entire thing so far has kind of just been like a timed exercise.
No, I'm shooting it.
Aye, so am I, but like, we're not doing much.
I am. These wee butts are exploding.
Covering his fist there and I was aiming to be shit.
1-1, yes. I think I have to hit him with this thing.
Bolts. Okay.
Oh my god! It's Edge with the spear! It's Edge with the spear! My... Oh, no. Did I throw it? What do I do with it?
No idea.
I think...
Just
to
we
keep
have to
shoot-
ground them.
Yeah, I have the thing here.
Sorry, I'm running out of bolts in my guns here.
Did I just sit it there? Is that what I do? And he loves it?
I'm not sure.
Doesn't let me shoot it or anything. Or throw it at him.
Keep running out of bolts.
Maybe I impale one of these guys. Maybe that's what it is. I impale one of these guys with, and then he eats them.
Right, okay.
Kind of thinking.
Give it a whirl and
Because
see.
that's what he did last
Shit
time.
ton of people.
Oh, it keeps hitting me. It keeps hitting me. I made the mistake of walking too close, and I got it.
Okay.
Indeed.
Right. Can we restart? I want to have my controller back here.
Yeah, go ahead. Is it going to bring us
it's
back
really
to
annoying.
here, though? Or is it going to start us at the start of the level?
Well, I had no, so
Nobody knows.
I don't think
then.
it'll take us back to the start of the level.
My heart, I have Argentina and the work sweepstakes. Well, Ian, I will give them my blessing. I'll light the big candle, and they'll want it.
Yes. We'll light the
because I've
candle.
decided.
Right. I'm going to quit out of the game back in here because I want to get my controller work. It's driving me insane.
Yeah, because you completely lost control.
I'm really not contributing much because the game keeps like randomly jumping about the place and stuff. It's really
And
annoying.
your lack of skill makes it worse.
Exactly.
If it brings you back to the start, it means more content, and we'll be more content with more content. That's the thing. I don't watch the World Cup, but I all agree
Really,
England
England
suck a D. Just Razor, how dare you come in here and speak the truth? Fair play, fair play.
Right. So plug it in so it connects, then charge it.
Look at it.
Right.
So it connects.
Let's open
then
the game
charge
again. Plug it in. Oh, right. There we go.
it. Woohoo.
Go sport. Leyoric absolutely knows everything about sport, you know.
I fucking
Knows it
don't.
all.
I don't. I do not at all. I actually added a
You hate
rule.
sport, don't you?
This do not talk about sport. I can't do it in the joint chat because obviously you love your sports. But oh my fucking god, I hate sports. With an absolute passion. And do you
You
know
do.
what it is?
No, it's
It's not
fine.
even the sports itself. It's when I was younger, I was always in situations where everyone would be talking about sports and I would feel like such a loser and just be laughed out of the conversation. And they'd be all like,
I know what
ah,
I mean, like you felt like you couldn't contribute.
did you all watch the match last night? I can't believe Wenger took Walcott off that early. And I was sitting there going, then he's played Final Fantasy VII. And they're like, no, nerd. Proud to be bald. Hey, you're right. You're fucking right.
Right. Don't think it's here. Can you?
Has my
Yes, yes,
dog
right,
actually
then we have
learned?
it.
Has my dog actually learned the timings for the treat redeem? See if she has. That's fucking
Maybe.
insane.
She's clever.
She's really smart.
Sent you them better.
I try to get in the football basically every year and never can do it. Yeah, I've tried a few times and I don't care. Other sports I could probably care a wee bit more, but American football I got on for quite a bit.
Yeah, you did actually.
I
That's
enjoyed
right.
that. I enjoyed that. That was good. I
Like
didn't like
eight-ball stuff.
the amount of breaks they took. That annoyed me. It's like, oh, the
Sure, they've
ball's
done
been
that
turned
for
over.
World
Let's
Cup this
take
year.
a 15-minute break. And I'm like, no, stop.
They've done that with the World Cup. Now in
Oh,
America
no
they have
way.
hydration break.
Hydration
So
break.
stupid, like.
Razor,
Aye.
take it out of here.
Like the World Cup's been in other hot countries, you know.
I
They
but
don't
it's
have
for the
hydration
ads.
Aye, that's what it is. Aye. They make millions apparently on the ads. During it.
What the fuck? What the fuck indeed? Or ehole.
That set us back a wee bit.
Ehole hook. Ehole.
Eh, holy. You know what that makes me think of? Mahwan. Mahwan.
What? Mawam?
Just the way you were saying it. Mahwan. I don't know what that means, by the way. That word. You can let
It's
me know.
like shock. It's like, oh my god, OMG.
What's coming to you, Simmons?
Right, okay.
Sure they saved a room for you in hell.
Cool. And how do you pronounce it?
Ehole. Or ehole.
Ehole.
Right,
okay.
I know you don't pronounce the you don't pronounce the H. And then J is pronounced as a H. So ehole.
Yeah.
I think,
Jesus,
I
for
think,
example.
I think. May could correct me if I'm wrong. She's teaching me Spanish, you see.
Right, okay. See? See? See what I did there?
You're right. I'm right. I was right. Oh, shit. I'm right about two things. That means I
There we
have no more things to be right about for the rest of the year. Fuck.
But for some reason, I thought of this 0800 00 1066. That's a car insurance company, isn't it?
I think it is. Like it's like
Admiral or
Admiral
something?
Insurance or something.
I think it's
Are
Admiral.
you calling him an a-hole? No, but whenever I first heard it, I googled e-hole, and it came up emergence hole from Gears of War. I was like, okay.
I suppose. that works.
Hastings Direct, right? Okay. Don't know what you're saying. Oh,
I used to
buenos
have
dias.
Hastings Insurance, actually.
We've got to get to that helicopter.
see, May got it. May caught it. I was
Dos
speaking Spanish
cerveza,
there for
por
a second
favor.
when you missed it, Leyoric.
Dos cerveza, por favor.
Oh, there's loot over here. I'm gonna go get it because I need all the ammos. Right, my controller's working, thankfully. Well, you know what? I haven't shot a bullet yet, I think.
1066 Battles of Hastings. I never got that.
Did you have
Right,
that in
okay.
history?
Years ago. It is a versatile Mexican interjection and express surprise, awe, dismay, hesitation. Depending on the context, it translates in English to wow, yikes, gosh. So, in Irish terms, it's just,
Right,
it's fuck.
okay.
You know, you'd be all, fuck. Fuck.
Aye.
Fuck.
What the
You know,
fucking hell?
depending on what way you say it, you know, it's...
Aye. Aye,
And then, even sticking there often, you could be all, fuck off, or fuck off. You know,
Aye. You could say
Sierra,
playfully or
what's happening?
seriously as well. Sierra, welcome on. Good if I can see you. Who won? Bastards.
oh, we were in Waffles
set us
chat.
back a wee bit.
We were in Waffles stream last night, and I was doing a McKinn's impression in chat, and I just wrote 1-0. And Waffles was like, oh, it's a brilliant McKinn's impression. He just comes on, no context, just... Like, I don't even know who 2-1 is to. You know,
I'm assuming England because it's England versus Argentina.
but how would you know that?
Because they, even though they're not home and away, it's how they tie matches up. Home and away. So they know what kit to use and all that stuff.
I remember that this, but it's awful. It's not... We're doing all right with it. I think we figured out what we're doing with the boss. To be fair.
Yeah, I think you're right with the impaling thing at the end.
I think we just need to go Roman Reigns on him. 2-1 to Argentina. See, Hooke! See!
Oh! McKenzie, you typed it the wrong way around. You should have wrote 1-2. Yeah, fucking EGG.
He McKinn's it up.
Can't get the staff. I did.
Not get this fucking staff, sir.
He's not himself. His ankle's sore. Wait, it's
Jolene. 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 Jolene.
That's you. You're Jolene.
I get that every time I lean against something. People just start singing Jolene.
Oh, shit on me again. Shit on it.
Oh, Friday night. Was that Friday night dinner?
Friday night dinner.
Fuck,
Yeah.
I love that show.
What a show.
Oh, so good.
What a show. Unbelievable.
Lovely bit of squirrel. Hey, Jackie.
Listen. Listen.
Oh, no. Jackie.
Shalom. Shalom, Jackie. Shalom. So good.
Oh,
Oh,
it was
Friday night dinner.
wonderful,
For anyone
wonderful
that
show.
hasn't
right?
watched it, watch it. It's what do you call what do you call him? Mark Ritter? Son, he died last year, didn't he?
That's sad. Like, he was a very good comedian.
Definitely. Oh, he's brilliant. Such a dry sense of humor. Bit of crumble, yes, Ian. Ian gets it.
Bit of crumble, yes.
I
love
say it
it.
now whenever we're having apple tart as well.
I've
never
never
seen
seen
it,
it,
but
but
it
it's
is
on
actually
4OD. It is a wonderful show. Wonderful. Your man out of
Yeah,
them
watch it
betweeners,
on
you know the guy
4OD,
that
yeah.
Simon. Was it Simon in betweeners?
They did well.
Well, his real name's Simon. I think that's what I'm mixing up for.
Simon Bird. He did well. I did in betweeners. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Alright, so we need to stab a zombie, so we'll do it like that,
Right. Okay.
is my thought process.
Where's my shotgun? I'm there with you. That's all right. So now we just need to shoot him. So his head is his weak point.
I'm shooting these butts.
I think they stagger him, but the head's a weak point.
Regardless, we weaken
he's
him and
cuffing
then he eats these boys.
Aye. Aye, they
Oh
strengthen
my
himself.
god! She dropped an elbow on him. Stone cold. And that's the bottom line. The Stone Cold said so. What?
What? Nice. Right, any ammo for me?
Kick him in the nuts. That's the
Come on,
idea.
summons. Right. Don't see any more zombies yet. Come on, summons. Every time I aim at him, he covers his mouth. Be shite.
That is a sentence gone. Someone please quote that. I'm not in Hooke's chat. Someone needs to quote that. He said, every time I aim at him, he covers his mouth. Please and thank you.
A mod or a VIP can add a quote, by the way. Mod or VIP. Exclamation mark quote add, all one word, and then take a space and then type the text.
So I think the idea as well is to get rid of the other zombies too, so he's forced to take the one that he doesn't want to.
Right, okay.
So it's a delicate mixture of both attacking him and them. Parkour.
Okay.
Aye, there we go. That boy's impaled.
Right, okay. Let's check out the other ones then. Switch in music.
Mark out.
Just a sexy bird. Oh yeah. There we go. Oh, he's taking someone.
He's taking the bait.
Yes. Always not happy about that.
He is not. Normally there's like three like goes at these guys, isn't it?
So what do we do? Pick us up? A. And do you just melee someone? Is that what you
I
do?
just
Do you
walk up
impale
to him and you get a prompt.
Nice. There we go. Nicely job.
No! Let me kick you in the face! I'd rather watch Twitch than Hook. Twitch and Hook, right, okay.
Well, thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Haven't
How you
seen
been?
this.
How's life been, Dust Razor? Go ahead, what were you going to say?
Oh, his
Oh,
eyes.
his head's-
His eyes! Shoot him in the eyes.
Nice. My eyes. Oh, he absorbed the zombie. Right, I'm picking up the... Oh, shit. Oh, that healed him. See ya?
Yep.
We almost have him. What's it gonna take to finish this?
A lot.
An RPG.
Do we have another spear? Or is your man still there?
Who?
Oh, your man's still there with the spear in him.
What? But you can't do this.
I just
to
impaled
me.
somebody.
You know how
Confident as Gengar. Welcome on.
Back out of here. Oh, there we go. I did something.
I think I accidentally shot him.
Alright.
Leon, look out! Those things will cut right through you.
I think I got too close there.
You alright?
No, I'm good, I'm good.
There we go. We're sucking diesel now, sir.
Nice. What'd you do?
I don't know, but his arm fell off. He's a one-man army now. He's armless. He's fully armed.
Hello.
Farewell to arms.
Yes.
Anybody has watched The Evil Dead will get that one.
RKO out of nowhere. Exactly, Mickens.
Oh, he's taking the bait.
Come on, Summons, stay, would you? Still can't believe it's called Summons. Such a silly name.
I'm sorry, but some cool people are called Simmons. Who are you, the judge?
Okay. Well, apart from Summons, out of
J.K.
Red versus Blue.
Simmons. The guy that did J. Jonah Jameson and Spider-Man. Give me pictures
Yeah,
of Spider-Man.
it is, yeah. Spider-Man.
He's pretty cool.
Well, I'll give you that.
Could I stab this thing in his
Oh.
face? No.
For fuck's sake. He's just healing himself.
Timmy, what's happening?
sorry.
Welcome on.
What's the crack?
What's the story? We are resident up the evils right here.
We are.
Playing
I think
Resident
we're
Evil
on the
6.
final boss, to be honest.
Flamash's favourite of all the Resident Evils, to be fair.
Yeah. I can see why.
It,
Yeah,
it's
thank
definitely
you.
a great. It's better than every other Resident Evil game, by far.
I would say it's definitely better than 5,
I would agree. Better than 5.
in my strong opinion. You know.
I'm having a lot more
Well,
fun with this than I was 5.
Aye, me too. Just a shin kicking
Sup,
at me,
dudes? What's cracking? Damn it, were you playing some Final Fantasy X earlier on? I was lurking in your stream there. What is happening? How did you get on with it?
Is that behind me?
Yeah! Yeah! Kung Fu!
Go for his legs.
You go for his legs? Why am I
I
going
don't
for
know
his
why I
legs?
said that. I don't know. Leon just said it to shout that out there.
Go for his legs! Do you have a plan, Leon? No?
No, we're just shooting him here.
I remember Final Fantasy Reddy's doing his first playthrough of FF10, and he's off on the sick now.
He is. He went off in a sick. Unfortunately, because it's been a fantastic playthrough, so I'm looking forward to really coming back.
I know, it's a wonderful game, FF10. It's
I need to switch
the
to
emotional
shotguns.
journey you kind of want in a Final Fantasy game. When somebody hasn't played one yet, 10 is the one I normally recommend. Because it's very accessible.
Yeah. I get that. Holy shit. Oh, his eyes exposed. Lightning rod. Oh, right. Am I meant to do something here?
I don't know, I'm jumping on him. Jumping on him!
Lightning rod in him whenever he's down.
Oh well, I threw a grenade in his face.
Right, now
And
we
it's
know.
so good. Oh, it is. It is. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
but
just a
even
chill
the-
playthrough, trying to ease into Final Fantasy again so I can start Zodiac Age. Oh, the internet recently
Oh,
done
nice.
Zodiac Age. He platinumed it. Absolute maniac.
Good journey right there.
That's not what
Right.
she said.
Oh, you got it on his eye. Well done.
I didn't mean to, but
This is
you know
what
what?
we need to do.
I'll take
There
it.
we
I'll
go.
take it.
Should
Shocking.
he die already?
Shocking.
That's the
Absolutely
fourth time
shocking.
we've got this guy.
Ciao.
So I know you are Leyoric in real life. Good job. And Crazy Poo is also doing the same, where you're collecting the physical
Bastard.
Final Fantasy games.
Oh, very good, Chrissy.
The one-
It's
Chrissy's been the
all
same, yeah.
Cloudboss's fault, and I've started ordering games off Vinted, and
That was me. It mentioned
the-
Vinted on. Well, no, actually, it was Cloudboss, wasn't it? I think.
that's what I said.
Or was it me? I can't remember who mentioned it first.
It was
But Vinted's
Cloudboss.
great.
Stop trying to steal who has glory, Michael.
I don't
But,
care who did.
Well, clearly you do, because you're all, it was me.
You don't chop it. No, I more care about what actually happened. I don't care what is right.
Just got another
Just got
14
another
a day.
14.
I have a problem. You do.
Jesus.
You go all in on stuff. Remember when you spent thousands on Pokemon cards?
That's right. Although the excitement of some of those pack opening streams was there, to be fair. I was
They
like,
were
if
pretty
he
good,
pulls
like-
something here that's fucking amazing. Let's never
Let's
talk
get
about
started in
Pokemon
10 years when Hooke plays Final Fantasy Remake. Oh, no. Did you get a rocket launcher?
Yep.
Oh, there was one there for
Fuji
me
rocket
too.
launcher.
For fuck's sake.
It solves every issue in Resident Evil games. The rocket launcher.
Never talk about the Pokemon cards. They're still unopened packs around his house. He finds them and the sugar and all. And his tea bags.
Pulse Razor. I played Final Fantasy VII OG last year on stream. Loved it. Loved it. I have to say.
I love the remakes as well, though. I love both of them.
Yeah.
At least they got the point.
Yep.
10 took it, especially since the first playthrough, and I was told Zodiac Age is like a single-player MMO. Yeah, it would be a bit like that, yeah.
So
Yes, it was
Zodiac
literally
Age, I
lightning
don't know
strikes the head.
a lot
Less
about.
effective. What?
I don't know a lot about Zodiac.
It's Final Fantasy 12. The main character, Vaughn, is the worst character in the whole actual game.
Right,
Every
okay.
other side character is so much better. Just, oh, it's the umbrellas. Oh, that's so cool.
So it
That's
is.
so
Just about
cool.
to say it's nice symbolism there, isn't it?
Yeah.
What was the best? And if they changed the main character, it would be known by everyone as the best.
Yeah.
So you're saying
Yeah.
everything but the main character is the best thing about it?
He's not a bad main character. I think the idea is you're supposed to like picture yourself and live through the main character. But Van would be the weakest, I would say, out of all the main characters in the Final Fantasy game, because everyone else is more memorable. They have
Right.
better characters. You have Cloud and Squall and Lightning and Zidane, and they're all just really good characters, whereas Van was just meh.
Nah. Right, okay.
I hope you're
Kira,
doing better
what
than
is happening
England did.
there?
Is
Are
it
they-
over?
Is it over?
Is it not coming home?
Is that Ada's?
I didn't play
You played-
7 Remake Dust. No, I played OG.
He played OG. I played Remake.
Yeah, you played Remake, yeah. Oh, about to do my makeup here. Oh, it's an SD card.
Vanilla! It's over 2-1 to Argentina.
It's over 2 on the Argentina. Insane. Who scored? Akira Dino.
Argentina.
Well,
Twice?
that's
You know,
that's true, yeah.
I'm no expert, but I'm just saying.
Evidence that proves
I meant specifically
Which means
on the
it will
pitch.
prove your
You know.
innocence.
I did. I scored,
with your man.
ma.
Again?
innocence.
Ready? What
Again?
happened the last time you slagged off someone's ma? Raul Cooley gave you grief.
True.
He gave you grief and he said he
True.
touched your ma's tits. You remember that?
Mm-hmm. Cassie, welcome in.
Couple players scored.
On our way back. See you
Van isn't even the main character. He just kind of stumbles along for the right. Ash is the main character. Well, you know what, Cassie, that's a better representation. That's fair. I agree.
Testing to see if I can get a famous person in here.
So Raul Cooley,
Love
who
it.
is in
Love it.
the Blind Manor, he's done a good few stuff. He
Sammy.
voiced the main
Good evening,
character in Saros, which is a game came out this year. Ian was streaming it, and he called on the chat. He gifted subs, and then he slagged off Riddy's ma, and it was amazing. Best thing ever happened on Twitch. Sammy, what's
I
happening?
will do it in spot shortly, John. No problem.
What's happening, sir?
Sammy, it is good to see you, buddy. What?
Sammy's level 21. Is this going to push the party over the edge? Oh, I think the boss is getting bit tonight.
Ooh, your bar's full. Yep.
My bar is full. Oh shit, everything's going on at once.
Oh,
Hey,
Haven't
with the
packed in.
Konami opening, and then McKinn's with the
No.
feet of dog.
what do you say?
G to the G. We finished it.
No, no.
We did. Look at us
I'm
go.
not gonna give you a treat if you call me that. What do you say?
Nicely job.
Fucking enjoyable.
Well, now we can chat for a bit. That's a nice part.
Oh, that's not reaching. That's nice. That's nice. I'm going to give my dog a treat.
Go for it. You do it. Is there an after
At
credits
Backlash?
scene?
Backlash.
Oh,
Maybe not.
McKinn's, look
At
what you've done.
Backlash.
Look what you've done. You blocked the dog's face. You should be ashamed of
Backlash.
yourself. Ashamed, McKinn's.
McKinn's.
Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Look
Backlash.
at
I
this
see it.
fucking
I see it.
shenanigans.
I have your screen here on the side.
Tut, tut, tut.
Diabolical McKinn's.
Everybody shake your head at McKinn's in shame. Point a finger and waggle it a wee bit if you want.
At Backlash.
That's there would be a dog's
At
face there, but no,
Backlash.
there's not.
Diabolical.
Tut, tut, tut. Tut, tut, tut.
Backlash.
diabolical. Oh, and she's moved now. Oh, no way. Leo, would you like to reach your darling?
Oh, I tabbed out of the game. Sorry, folks. I just realised. There we go. Volume's back. Don't know what Backlash is, but they're the least scary people I've ever heard.
It was perfect.
That's until they stand beside you, ready, and they're like,
Everything.
Six
down
foot
to
eight.
the last
and they're absolutely
minute
ripped.
detail.
And you're
Well,
like,
except-
I take that back.
Actually, Reddy's over 6 foot, so I don't think he'd be that
Reddy is quite
intimidated.
tall.
Reddy's tall.
It's true. Yeah.
Backlash is
That's told me.
it's a pay-per-view event in the wrestling world, but they did this very, very humorous sort of trying to be serious, going at Backlash. And it's cool whenever they have the music and it's edited and stuff, but see when it's just on its own, they just look so fucking stupid. And Danhausen recently did one where he just inserted himself into that promo, and I was like, I'm doing the same. I'm
Yeah.
doing the same.
You sent me that, and I was in stitches laughing at that. So
I
fucking
enjoyed
good.
it. I enjoyed it. It's a bit long, but you know what? It is what it is.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Hey!
I couldn't resist.
I set
Sorry.
them up, you
Immature.
knock them down.
Couldn't resist.
That's what she said. There's McKinn's on that. There you go.
Yes, McKinn's. Toddler brains. Brilliant.
Not only am I tall, I've apparently reached a level of fat which a random streeter walked past me, sitting slouched in the seat in the shop and said to me, Looking comfy. Big lad. Big lad. Big lad. I'll never
Great names.
recover. Oh, Rudy. That just makes you more cuddly. Don't worry about it. Great minds and all that. Yes. Yes. Oh, and
Looking comfy, big lad.
it was probably in a big Belfast accent too, and it made it even worse.
Exactly.
They
that
said big
twang.
lad, mate. Oh,
Thank you, Sarah.
Sarah, what's the crack? I don't even think I get chatting to you when you came on there.
No, not probably.
I
Here,
enjoyed.
I have a
I enjoyed
summary.
that. I'm not even saying that to wind Flemish up. I actually thought that was fun.
I agree. Aye. Like that
Yeah.
campaign in co-op, I actually enjoyed as
Yeah.
well.
The
Do
credits
they
for
play
every
the
chapter.
credits
I
after every.
would
dunno.
assume so. I would say
Yeah,
so.
probably. I think
I'm
is this
hitting
not the main chapter though?
Too much going on in July for me to not eat. Really, the way they look at it is don't think one day, think day one.
Aye,
But then again, I had a
100%.
Chinese tonight, so I can't even give any sort of advice. I was just eating the prawn crackers going, oh.
Nice one. I had a McDonald's last night at midnight because Uber Eats brought it in like 10 minutes to the hotel. It was great. So we were
Oh,
sitting last
nice
night
one.
watching Who Wants to Be a
Mac and
Millionaire
cheese.
in our hotel room, eating a McDonald's after the concert.
Ah, how the other half love, hey? How the other half love. It
Oh,
wasn't even down
Funny.
Dublin. There was a hotel right beside
Yeah.
your house. You just go stay there sometimes when the wind's annoying you. You just leave home in the house.
Did I mention I was a break of bitch one night? Just saying.
You haven't said it. You haven't said it at all.
Fucking so happy. But anyway, I'll not talk about it too much.
He can do it. He's
Not
not
as
at his
comfy as your man last night.
He's not a computer. They wind up. Should have
Bet
said
you
not
were
as comfy
loving
as
it.
your man.
Hey.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
What do you mean he's not at his
Recently.
computer? Is he out walking the doggy? Actually, no, it's
Is
early.
he?
Usually, it's
No, it's
usually like
early,
11, isn't it?
It's near 11
Yeah.
o'clock. Yeah,
Hmm.
he'll do it. Maybe he's sorting the chicken arrabbiata. Legolas.
Legolas?
Moment of
Welcome
truth. I mean, all she has to
We
get is like
did,
1,000
Legolas.
to knock me off the top
Yeah.
spot.
Legolas, chicken. Yes. Yes.
Oh!
I think she's top.
But look at how
might-
low her score was. We're going to be very close.
she got shafted today. Somebody
Oh
do
my
the leaderboard.
god, that's a better
redeem
result than the
leaderboard.
Argentina England match. Yes,
Leoric's still top.
number one. Yes. Yeah, sports. This is what I know. I get the feeling. I now understand why people love sports. Sports.
Brilliant. Oh, Sierra's Super Saiyan. Nice one, Sierra. There we go. You get 6,050 today too. That's some
my
game.
teeth. Oh, it really was. It
Aye.
was like, but what? Just a couple hundred, even less than that.
She's not going to sleep tonight now. She's going to be ripping my rage.
Australia,
Rubbish.
good night, everyone. You did well. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for coming on.
Dusters, thank you very much. Exactly. Thank you very much. Good to see you, dude. Look after yourself.
Now that's one and done stream.
Um,
I did play my kids on stream. What's my kids?
What?
I don't know what that is.
Kids? What the
The
fuck's
skin
that?
of my teeth. Rigged. Rigged.
Someone who checks in though can still get a Zenzu bean, which like if they get like 6,050 like Sierra got, that would be 12,100.
Oh, I forgot to
Is
say
it
to you,
double?
go fuck yourself. Stop.
Well,
stop trying to get people to
stuff
knock me
my
off top spot. I don't want
Huh?
at things. I don't want at sports, and this is the one thing I want. How fucking dare you, sir?
I need to ring Doctor now for a settler. She's an emotional mess. Lost track of what campaigns you've done. Just this one. Really.
Just Leon
That's the
and
only one we're
Polina.
co-oping, actually.
That's what.
just
If she hate because he hates me. Because he hates me.
No, I just don't want to do 70 hours of Resident Evil.
Because you hate me. I know.
That's what it is. Although
Self-promoting.
you had the idea. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, what were you saying?
You had the idea to come up with older games that were co-opable.
Yeah.
Like Army
Yeah.
of Two. And what was the other one? Kane something?
Kane and Lynch.
Did you mention? Kane and Lynch.
Yeah.
Things like that. We should definitely do that. 100%.
They might. We might have to get them physically in the old consoles, like, but
That's
just
fine.
capture card it.
Aye,
Those great
as long
games.
as like it's Series X backwards compatible.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you have a 360, do you? So like if it's Series X backwards compatible, then we're grand.
I think most of them are anyway. So
Most Xbox games are. The list of things that aren't isn't that
you
big.
could do good
Fair.
co-op games. Just a thought. No, we can't
See,
do good
that's my
co-op
thinking,
games.
buddy.
We can't because Hooke
That's my thing.
has to be carried through these games. So
No.
no. Portal
No.
2, Resident Evil 5,
I carried
Resident
you
Evil
through
6.
Portal 2.
Did you? My
And
fucking side function.
I did. Ah.
The
Constantly
NES
dropping you
McDonald's
hints
theme
in
game
chat.
that was a platformer, kind of like Mario clone. It was 2-player. I
Oh,
remember
right, okay.
it was like there was a McDonald's kind of GUI game.
Good game.
You could get good at games. Just a thought. Akira, throw in the shade. Oh, ready.
Well,
what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
yep.
Oh, Ready's a mod. Ready, just ban him.
Keep trying, but I learn everything from you.
100%. But
I have the
enjoyable.
power.
But I'm a special little guy.
Legolas.
Look at her. Look at her. Look at her.
29 months of
Even though
chatting is
you
right.
shafted her and her checking, still being loyal and subbing to you.
Thank you very much. Right. Legolas, I really appreciate that. Thank you kindly. What are we at here? Let's see. I don't know why I did it in capitals. It should still work. There we go. 8630.
this
Folks, thank you
round.
very much. What a fucking start as well. Legolas, thank you. The reason I pulled that up is anytime a sub happens, whatever my cup would have been goes to the charity tool. And the pin
What is
message.
Chocolate.
You smell chocolate?
Yeah.
I want some.
Hmm?
Always been so loyal. I know, 29 months. That's insane. Thank you very much.
So you
So
do
there
know
are-
the
are
3
you doing the
campaigns.
3 campaigns?
I think
You were- maybe?
my tism will mean I'll kind of have to. I have to finish it, and I have to have the bots with it. Otherwise, even though no one's going to watch it on YouTube, I have to do it.
Nah, it's for your own completionist.
Exactly.
Anyway.
I got reminded. Have you seen
Never
people
mind.
getting annoyed
Okay.
because Twitch released modiversaries, but people have fucked the dates with time it redeems and resetting their date? Oh, I would say
way.
it's probably happened with Burton quite a bit.
Oh, I timed waffles out like once a stream for a while as well.
That's right as well.
Not at all time.
When you don't have someone to laugh at in the game, then I can always find a co-op partner, Flamash. How dare you, sir? How dare you?
No, I feel bad. I don't fancy doing the other 3 campaigns, and I'd rather be honest. Though.
I understand. You just don't love me. That's fine. That's fine. Don't
There's
worry
also
about
that, but I don't want to say it.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I'll just sit over here and cry in my Weetabix.
You're
Definitely
doing
smell someone
123 skips a
melting
day for crones. Oh, nice one, Legolas. Love that.
Oh, like a
Valve?
jumper?
What? Is Valve in the credits? Yeah, I think she means a jumper, not the packet of crisps.
The pack of crisps would also be impressive. 123 packets a day. Oh, cutscene.
Oh, cutscene. Thank you,
Look at
Cloud.
this, thank you. Wow.
Deborah
Deborah Harper.
Oh,
I don't know who the fuck. Oh, it was her sister. I was
Her
going to say, I
sister.
don't know who the fuck Deborah Harper is.
I was just about to say the same thing too.
It's time for me to take responsibility.
Now, this is obviously later, right? They haven't changed. Well, Leon has, but Helena hasn't. I think she'd have
But
some more
not
clothes.
actual skipping. Ripe skipping? Oh my god.
I'm ready.
Marnie's because of a crossover with
Fair
Left
play
4
to you,
Dead
Legolas.
2. Right, okay. So I'd like to ask if you enjoyed it, that I actually played it. You actually detailed the plot of it. What?
What?
The fuck you talking about, Flim Flam?
So there was
Being attacked.
5 other Resident Evils before this. This was Resident Evil 6. You play as Leon and Helena, and there's shit about Wesker's son, and you fight Simmons 44 times. Turns into T-Rex at the end, and then a giant beetle, and then you electrify him off a roof.
You know
And that's
what?
basically it.
Like, that was beautiful.
Huh?
That was so deep. And I was there with you the whole way, man. And I feel our bond of friendship's got even stronger because
Yeah,
of it.
me too.
This
I'm
is
gonna come round
quite
tomorrow and
possibly
have a
the
big hug.
greatest Resident Evil game ever.
Yeah.
For the next time you see her.
Those glasses don't suit her. She
But the next time you see her,
you know, she needs to see 6. This is Resident Evil shit. Akira, don't be at it. We love this game. This is our favorite. Look at them trying to copy Metal Gear Solid 4.
it does seem very similar,
no.
actually, really.
Truly is. It's
Fucking
wonderful.
fat thumbs. Like glass happens to me all the time.
The emotions, man. The
All the time.
emotions.
Grace, now you are winding up. New unlock holding hands. Are we done? Yes. Yes, sir. 8
Not
skills
enough
to choose
gun
from. Nice.
in Leon's mouth. Man, that end on the Metal Gear Solid 4. See that fight? When you go through all the different music and all the different health bars. It's, iconic. Liquid!
Right, I'm going to change.
Thank you,
scene.
mate, for the applause. I'm jumping out of my skin with excitement. I bet you're happy to help. Oh, happy to help. Yes.
Nice
The
one.
skipping joke.
Took me a second there to catch on. I get it. Well done. Well done. GG's, thank you very much. That was good. It actually
I
was
really
good.
enjoyed it.
Right.
Yeah.
I challenge you to explain it better than what I did, because I think I absolutely nailed it.
He'll just Google it or ChatGPT it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Well, that's true. He probably it won't
Hook,
know, so you'll
Hook.
chat GPT it.
Listen.
Yeah.
Don't put your. I thought you put it beautifully. Like I thought it was heartfelt. I felt my emotions bubble up inside me. See, the last couple of weeks when we've been playing this game, it just relived the friendship and the camaraderie the whole way through it. And don't add more words. You'll sully it if you add more words now.
Okay.
Keep it simple. Keep it the way it was. Fair play, lads.
I was
Thank
thinking
you.
of streaming 4 when it came out, but I actually don't think I could just sit for another 90-minute cutscene at the end and say nothing. It would just be me muted. I just loosely talked the whole way through that cutscene at the end of Metal Gear Solid 4.
No words, just take your top off. I am that warm. I'm actually tempted. This is the polo I wore to work today, and it's so hot, so fucking hot.
I got a cold shower before the stream. That's how warm I was. Look, 29.4 C. Do you have a thermometer there? What's it in your house? Because you're always saying your house is nice and cool.
I do have
for
a
anybody who
thermometer. I
works
just don't know
in
where it is.
freaky units, that is 84.9.
Type it in the chat, and it'll fix it for you.
Oh, aye. Somebody type 29.4 C in the Leyoric chat. Oh, I can type it. Oh, aye. Oh.
It works for everybody except for me.
Oh, I typed it wrong. There we go. 84.9.
There we go. Conversion complete.
Just take your top off. Fair play. Thank you very much. Thank you. Metal Gear Solid was a fantastic series. Well, that's what I started streaming with. My first ever stream was a clusterfuck. I was nervous as fuck. It was Leyoric. And I think Annihilator randomly popped on because Sean here in chat is friends with him in real life. And it was you three hanging out with me, and I played Halo Infinite. And I was actually alright at it, to be fair. And then my next stream, then I was like, no, you know what? I went away and I made a list. So for anyone ever thinking of getting into streaming, or if you're streaming and you're not sure what to do, I made a list of games that interested me that I hadn't played before. So then I thought, right, I do want to play all these, but I'll be smart about it. So then I went and you can go on sites like Twitch Tracker, or you can use Twitch's own metrics and have a look at a game and see how many viewers it usually get, that category, shall we say, and how many streamers are usually streaming it. So if a game, say, I don't know, Metal Gear Solid 1, let's just take that. Say you have a look, and at any given time, there's 10 people streaming it, right? And there's like several hundred viewers. That's a good thing to stream, because like if it's 10 or so, like you're going to be near the top anyway, even if you have 2 viewers, which is good. You're good for discoverability in a category, good for potential raids, all that stuff. If there's like thousands of viewers, but there's also like a couple thousand people streaming it, it's not a good choice. So like, I'm not saying don't stream the game, just move it further down your list of priority.
It really is.
I always said at the start. Yeah,
it really is.
Fuck me, Hooke making a zero cash video live in front of us. That's actually a video topic that I want to cover at some stage. We haven't made a video in a month, so I do need to get around to that.
Oh, I'm the exact same, man.
It's not dead, I promise. Have you noticed though, like we've been slowly trickling up subscribers, which is very nice. Thank you very much.
Still coming along,
even though we haven't posted in a month, which just means that our content is like evergreen. That's something me and the Orc chatted about, where we want to make content that'll last. We don't want to make content for that specific moment in time in streaming. We want to make content that'll last.
Yeah.
As well, so like you could randomly search it, for example, on YouTube and find it.
Are you saying I'll never be a Fortnite streamer? No, not Twitch will still recommend things, but the more saturated the game is, the more further down the list you're going to be for people randomly looking for stuff, but you'll still be recommended to people. But McKen's asked, are you down or up the stairs? I am downstairs.
You're down, I'm
downstairs. I'm on the bottom floor, baby.
So it's warmer for me up top. I remember it was one of the Metal Gear games, and then it happened to me with Dark Souls. I ended up on the front page, like the recommended for like a category. If you followed that category, it wasn't like a partner front page slot. It was just if you followed that category and logged onto Twitch, like it shows you what categories you like. I was twice that's happened to me because you get like a message when it happens.
Akira, have a good
So-
night. Hopefully you can chill, you can cool down, man, and you go having a good sleep.
Short, sweet visit. Akira, all the best, buddy.
I
Thank you
personally
very
sort
much
the
for hanging
viewers
out.
from low to high. I do the same. I'd rather go on the
Yeah, me too.
stream with a few people so you can actually get to know and chat with the streamer rather than going to a nice buzzy one.
Aye, 100%.
Ready? I
Yep,
take this as a
100%.
compliment. I get my own hello. Ready? You do deserve your own hello every single time. And I have
Hello,
another
friends.
meeting
Frank, come over
for
to talk to me
no,
about work
Sammy,
stuff.
enjoy the meeting.
No bother, Sammy. No bother at all. You're alright, dude. My downstairs is cool all the time. At the very top of the house, it has 3 levels. That is true. I've seen Mackenzie's house. I've been in it. It is an old-fashioned, like, 3-story house.
I worry about
But
them
my house
stairs.
is
We
good.
had been up to
Downstairs
something.
is cooler. Here, I worry about them stairs now that he has a gammy ankle. Man,
It's like
they
a
fall hard
sinner.
as oral. Sinner. It just needs to mod it now.
Cinemods?
You know?
No, I'm not right. I want to go home and go back to sleep. Sammy, I as a manager, maybe not yours, I give you permission to go home.
There you go.
And if anyone asks, just say,
Right.
Leyoric said I could go. And then they'll be all like, okay. Just do that.
Yeah, that's logical to me. That makes sense.
He's your man. You know the bald fella. And they'll be like, right, okay.
Oh, your man on Twitch, Stone Cold? Oh, yeah. All right, then.
And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so. What?
It's like a sinner. I'm still down
I'd
with that.
fucking
Brilliant.
leave. All right, fellas, Queen
Queen.
B, what's happening?
What is happening?
Do
Good
some
fucking morning.
deathmatch Halo. I wouldn't want to show him up. It's his favourite game and it'll make him feel sad. And he'll just throw out all of his Linkin Park CDs. I'm going to put my PC in the spare room. It's cooler somehow. But your PC will also heat up whatever room it's on. That's also a thing. I am no longer English,
could.
just saying.
Thunderbolt?
You're not. You're an Aussie. You're an Aussie Queen Bee. So, you know,
You know
that's how I know you. Skullface says that
Oh.
he's a huge Batman fan as well. Well, that is a bit of a dark
I am
night.
a
So
Batman fan.
that match was fucking
You know
terrible.
what?
Aye,
Shui.
me and Hooke, Queen Bee, me and Hooke tried our best. We beat the boss. We beat the Leon and Helena episode, part of Resident Evil. Is that the match you're talking about? I don't think there was any other match. There was nothing else important happening, was there? I think so. Anyone that's not following Queen Bee, please do so. Are you still
Hey,
playing Gold Sun as well? What are you shooting Batman for?
Because Brady was on about Batman thing, so I says I'd show me tattoo.
All right, okay.
Sorry. You were chatting to Queen there. I was just doing my shit on the side, sorry.
Yeah, I was just saying to folks to check out Queen Bee as well. She would stream quite
100%.
early for us in the morning, so she's a good stream to hang out in if you're working from home. Pupper needs walk. Hey!
Hey, there it is.
We need a redeem or something, or we need some sort of event that goes off when he says that.
I think, you know what, that's actually not a bad idea. If Flemmis or Sierra say it. I like that idea.
No, that's just a
I can see it now. What?
I have a video somewhere of a dog barking, but that's not what came up on screen when I pressed it. It was this. It entertains me so.
Ads are ready to
It
run, but we'll just
entertains
let
me so. What the fuck was that? Oh, fucking slow much get
It's the pineapple man.
Oh,
Oh,
that's what needs to pop up when he says Pupper needs to
Fucking
go for a
brilliant.
walk. Oh,
Flemish,
I have so
Sierra,
many
I love you very
questions
much.
about that. Sierra. No, you don't. You have no questions. It all makes
You
sense.
just don't ask what that folder's called on the Orcs PC. That's the only thing I'll say. I'm on there as well, old enough.
Oh, yeah, I have a few weeks break for family responsibilities, but I'll be back. Like the Terminator, like the Aussie Terminator.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, honestly, Queen, like Leo or Ian always says he always says to me, or his viewers if I pop in like, oh, Mr. Northern Irish, like, because I say Ian has like an ASMR voice. He says the same about me, which I think is just a courtesy thing.
It's a lie. It's a
Queen's
blatant lie.
voice
Your
is
voice is shit.
actually really chill to listen to whenever like she's live. Because if I'm working, I'm just tuned in and I'm just listening on. It's actually
Yeah.
really, it's like Mike as well. Mike is also got that quality where his voice is just really easy to listen to.
Mike does audio, you know.
He does sometimes.
Just so you know. Just so you know.
I think none of you have ASMR voices. Truth always hurts, right? Well, my wife tells me all the time that I have a voice for the radio, but also a face for the radio. So, I'll take those compliments.
I get told I can't say the word butts, and it comes out as butts. So
You
there's
do,
that.
to be fair. I stand by what I said. Well, Ian's never wrong, to be fair. So I'll give him that. have to go on this walk as well. He's dragging you out, is he? Have a
He's
good evening,
afraid.
you
He's
too,
afraid
you too.
in case someone gets him. You'd be sacked, Leyoric, on first day. Why would I? Why? What am I getting sacked for?
What?
It's
What
my
did you get
first
sacked
day.
for?
It's my first day. Come on.
Well, I'd say statistically, it's the easiest time to lose your job.
Your puns.
Is your first day.
I think my puns are my
Truth
puns are my
hurts.
greatest asset. Right. Granted, I do have a team at work, and they all like I was in the office with them today, and I was constantly telling dad jokes, and just the eyes were rolling. But you know what? It's an exercise to keep you awake. You roll the eyes, and you're like, "Oh, here we go. Right, work mode. Let's go." And there's no messing about. Everyone gets stuck in their work because they don't want to listen to me.
Ignitus.
Evening, gents.
Good evening,
Ignitus.
dude.
Ignitus. What's happening? So
You and your
it's
puns.
it's a strategy. It's a strategy. I did have another eye joke, but it was a bit cornier than the last one. It's a bit saying.
I can't hear you.
Sorry.
I think your noise gate is kicking in. You're talking too low.
I was whispering into the mic there. It's only you can hear me. So only you can
I
hear
didn't
me.
come through. Oh, I couldn't hear you. No.
That's fine. Probably the best. It was dirty stuff. It was dirty stuff.
I love that
You
command.
are precious, they are. Oh, but it's actually all true. I do tell them jokes and work, and some BK Ultima who calls in here, he cracks up on me. But
He does,
my team,
doesn't he?
they just look at me and they're like, "Oh, let's all get back to work because he's starting now. If we acknowledge him, he'll keep going."
Your team
I
will love
think-
it too, though, because like they've bought you like cushions and stuff, like Phil Mitchell and whatnot on it, haven't they? Like, random things like that. Both well, Ignitus, very much so. Very much so. We finished that campaign there in Resi 5. I think Leoric's going to do the other 3, but I'm not because I don't want to.
Yeah, so there is a character in a TV show over here called EastEnders. His name's Phil Mitchell. He is a famous bald man. And this is what my team at work got me. Oh, Phil.
It's you
Yeah,
when your
Grant.
beard was grey.
Get out of my pub.
Ooh, I love. Ooh, I love.
That's Phil Mitchell.
Puns.
Get out of my pub.
All right, Phil.
All right, Phil. Get out of my pub. No, there's a hitch in there. We may take the hitch out. He's the oddest man. Oddest man in television.
Quick, run Leoric. If he's not running anywhere.
Quick run, New York is here with the puns, and then they all hide under. Yeah, that's exactly what happens. They just pretend to be busy. They're all, I'm on a call at the moment. Who you in the call with? Fuck off,
Steve. They all have silent, like, you know the way you can have silent alarms under your desk. They all have one of them.
Hook and
From his
Leyoric are in a pub. A clown, a horse, and a priest, and a dog walking. Hook says to Leyoric, "What's this? Some kind of joke?"
Oh, I get it. It's a play on, like, you're usually setting up for a joke.
All
So
right,
saying,
okay.
what's this? Right, I get it.
I love
Appreciate
Phil.
the effort.
Wasn't he married to
Wasn't he
Sharon?
married to
I think everyone was married to Sharon. Sharon. I think everybody was.
Queen, we were talking about this earlier. You might have watched this Friday Night Dinner. Did you watch Friday Night Dinner? What a fucking show.
I sent you
Absolutely
something
love Friday Night
unhinged.
Dinner.
I don't want to know what this is. I do.
Oh. There's another show. Is it Outnumbered? Was another one? Outnumbered comedy? I think it was Outnumbered. Yes,
I think I know
Outnumbered.
the one you're looking
Oh,
at.
unbelievable.
I don't
So
believe
good.
you.
Hugh Dennis was in that. Claire Skinner.
Oh my God! Ready? Can I show it?
What did he send you?
Can I show it?
Go for it. Simon, yes, Simon Bird. Yeah.
Put me way up there. Go on,
Friday
Cam.
Night Dinner was so funny. I know. Oh, I like the wee camera of me on your screen there, Leyoric. What is this?
Screen went away.
What are we looking
Do
at?
you remember do you ever see the sad Keanu where he's eating a sandwich on a bench?
Aye.
It's
Is
Flemish
that
and
Flemish?
pineapple. Friends, pun friends.
Brilliant.
Friday
Is
Night
that the
Dinner was
Martinez
so
guy?
funny. Yeah.
Sharon. Outnumbered is amazing though as well. For anyone, like, Friday Night Dinner got quite popular. I think it won awards. Outnumbered was a wee bit more less known.
Yeah.
Fantastic show. You know what I only watched like 2 years ago? Not even 2 years ago. With Mrs. Hooke and we binge watched it. Gavin and Stacey. Did you ever watch that?
Never watched it.
I had never watched it. And we binge watched it during Christmas time because it was going to be a special, and we thought, feck it. And I actually quite enjoyed it. It's quite funny.
I watched
Love that show.
Benidorm recently as well. It was good.
I've not seen Benidorm, no.
It's good. It's a cringy show, but it's good. Fun. You two should play Onward
but that's-
Abe's Odyssey together. Is it 2 player or is it 1 player? I forgot.
Is that too right enough? We are going to make a list. We are going to do more co-op streams because I love it, and like Leyoric has told me he'd love to do it easily. But we're going to.
Well,
look
that's not what I
into, like,
said. You just
older
put
titles.
words in my mouth. You just made it up. You were just like,
Yeah, well,
yeah,
that's
Leyoric says he loves it. Leyoric doesn't even text you. Have you blocked?
Loves not to put stuff in his mouth, so it does what it does.
Fucking hell! Jesus, this is a family stream.
It's not. Oh, it's not 11 o'clock yet. I thought it was 11 o'clock.
It's not
Took around
post
11.
watershed.
Fuck's sake.
The
But we're gonna look up older
BBC, well,
games.
the BBC will be coming down on you like a ton of bricks.
Sack me. Sack me. I made the BBC.
I made the BBC.
We're going to look up older titles. We were mentioning things like Kane and Lynch, stuff Army 2, older deliberately single-player linear co-op games that aren't Resident Evil. and we
Minecraft.
will
I
do
think
that.
Minecraft's a bit too open world for us. We want kind of story-based ones.
Yeah, something simple to follow as well.
And I
Because
think me and Hooke
that Resident
aren't
Evils
smart enough to
were
play Minecraft.
chaotic.
I think that's the
Also
issue.
Also that, yeah. Because the Resident Evils, I'm sure you'd agree, were like quite chaotic at times. It was a bit hard to keep up with chat sometimes. So
And
things that are a
it's-
wee bit more linear.
I'm on a bit of a diet at the moment, so it's not worth my while to get blocked. Minecraft's all blocks, Hooke. Minecraft's all blocks.
I get it. I'm just disappointed.
So am I.
I need a haircut.
So am I.
Fuck me.
I like Minecraft. Oh no, I was making a joke there, mate.
I like Minecraft too.
But I think it's going to be more story-based ones. I think we do on co-op.
Army 2, what a game. You played that back in the day, McKins, didn't you? I think you and Gav. Army Gav as well.
Borderlands games as well. You know
Borderlands
what's
good
good?
What?
Tiny Tina.
Tiny Tina, that's one of the newer Borderlands games, isn't it?
It is. It's kind of like
More
it
recent
was
one, didn't it?
DLC, but they made a full game out of it. Fucking hilarious.
Aye. I see. We just need to make a list. We'll make a wee list for ourselves offline.
Yeah.
And then
Make a
we'll
list.
just look
Check it
into some
twice.
titles and stuff.
To find out which is naughty and nice.
Because it seems the community, like you can tell us otherwise, but it seems like from what we can see on our ends, shall I say, it seems like you like the co-op streams as well whenever we do them. So definitely down for more. 100%. That isn't it. You know what Minecraft game I liked? Dungeons. Minecraft Dungeons was quite good.
I
was like
played
a
a bit of
4-player
that. I didn't really
top-down.
get on it.
Me and you and I can't remember who the other two were. We definitely played it one night.
We did. It was on Game Pass,
Aye.
I think.
I can't remember who we played it with, but that was actually good. I like that. I have to say. Loving the co-op streams, yeah. Like you were one of the
it's
first
good.
people to give me feedback about them, Legolas.
Good bad. You were like, stop talking over each other.
That's true too.
I don't think we have.
Mrs. said the same too. No, we've
I
got
don't
far
think
better
we
at it. Far better at it. Left 4 Dead or World War Z? Yeah, Left 4 Dead. So the 29th of July, which is a Friday, I think me, Ruddy, Tomahawk, and Flimosh are doing a co-op stream, or like a multi-stream, or whatever you want to say. So that's it's a good shout.
Way out.
Actually,
Or
'cause
what
that's
do you
very
call
linear. That's the thing with the two
what do
brothers,
you call
isn't it?
that one? There's one as well. I bought it and started playing it with my son, and then he stopped playing with me.
Is it the one where the parents get turned into wee dolls?
There's that, and then there's a newer one as well.
I was going to say I
Uh,
played that with Mrs. Hook.
A gangbang.
But I could play it again on stream, like, but I have played it.
We have that one, but there's also what do you call it?
Left 4 Dead is a great shout.
They're two. They go to this company. They see something about ideas for writing a book, and they get stuck in like this virtual world, and they have to try and co-op their way out of it.
It's from the same people that made the one about the two parents.
Yeah, what's it called?
Split Fiction. There you go.
Split
Liam.
Fiction. That's
Split
it.
Fiction. That's it. Good man yourself. That's a good shout. We could do that.
Split Fiction's a good
Because
one.
that is modern and intentionally made to be co-op as well.
And
That
I
could work.
think because I own it, you don't have to pay for it. It should just be you can download it and play it with me.
All right. How so?
Because it's only co-op. There's no single player. So if one person buys it, you can get a friend to play it with you.
Oh,
But it means then if
That's pretty
I
fucking
start
cool.
playing with like somebody else, you can't play it with me until I transfer the license back or something. Oh, that's something news to talk about. Did you see the crack with the Xbox physical to digital licenses?
I seen. Yeah. Has it been announced? I know it's
Oh,
been like leaked. Is it announced? Oh, I didn't see
Yeah.
that.
Apparently it's
okay.
coming very soon as well. So if you have a physical copy of a game, you can put it on your console and it will transfer it over to digital license. So if the
Ooh.
next console comes out and it is digital only, you will have them games playable. The only time
That's
you lose
amazing.
it is if you give it away and someone else puts that disc into their console. So it
Aye,
stops
'cause it
everybody
then
just
transfers to
buying
them.
one disc and just everybody having a copy of it then, which I think's really cool.
So every time a certain disc is put on, they must be going to be obviously there's checks already done on discs.
Yeah,
So
there
they
must be
must be going to
something.
be use
Yeah.
unique identifier from that disc to tie it to a
Yeah.
digital code. Right, okay. That's genius. I wonder how far back that goes then. Does it support Xbox One games?
I have no idea.
Or just
No
series
idea.
games? You know what I mean?
No idea. Payday's a good
That's
co-op
good.
game. Payday is good, but I think Payday 2... Payday 2 was the better one and Payday 3 was awful.
Aye. Aye. We played Payday 2, McKins, didn't we? Me and you and... I think.
No, it was,
Pretty
was
sure.
not me. It was me, you, Tank, and Waffles.
Oh, that's what it was. It was me, Tank and Waffles. Aye. That's right, aye.
There's a way
the
out.
way
Yeah.
out, is that?
Hooke was on it, but that
Is
was
that
the one with
the
prison
the
guys.
two brothers?
Yeah.
Aye, and then prison.
Two
Aye.
brothers.
There's also a Brother's Tale. That one's quite simple, mind you, but that's like an older brother and a younger kids. But I think that's way more simple.
Yeah.
To be honest,
We
on
might
your
need
own.
it. We
Aye,
might have
must
to
be
just go.
with
We
Leyoric.
might have to just go with Sonic 2, and you can be Tails.
That's right. Just in the background chatting, making sound effects now.
You're not even. You didn't even pick Tails in this. You're just making sound effects.
Mm.
Yahoo!
Aye, that could be done too. But definitely,
Well-
we'll make a list and then we'll plan it out.
Will we
100%.
rate out?
Go ahead, what were we going to say? Aye, may as well, aye. That they chin wagging away. Folks, thank you very much for everything. Honestly, right, I'm going to take a moment. Legolas, thank you very much for the sub. May for the gift sub as well. McKins for the 5 gift subs. Flimish for the 10 gift subs. Blanche for the bits. Let's see, let me keep going here. May for the bits as well. McKins for the streak. Chrissy Tina for the sub. Very, very kind. I see Chrissy Tina as live action. John Rambo
just
for the
spy that
streak
myself.
as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I'm caught up, folks. Thank you very much. The total as of tonight for charity, and this is going to run to the end of August. We are at 86.30 out of a 200 goal. So for anyone that missed it, if we hit the goal, I get the tattoo. I'll pay for the tattoo for myself, of course, and the money goes to charity, which is for mental health. That's the goal. So thank you very much, and thank you for hanging out. Much appreciated. What do you think, Chrissy Tina?
Yeah, she's playing Final Fantasy X at the moment, which we were chatting about earlier, is a phenomenal game.
Nice.
She's just started it. So if you could be wonderful and actually come along with the raid, copy the raid messages on, and say hello to Chrissy
Aye.
Tina. I'm going to start the raid on my side.
Have you done your boss fight?
No, I'm going to do it now in a wee second. So what happens is I press a button for my boss fight, and it'll bring up the raid messages, but also let you know how you did with the boss.
Right, okay.
So I'm pressing that button now. I think he's beating it tonight.
better.
Boss is dead. The boss
Nice.
is dead. So
Nice
anybody who
visual.
checked in tonight on my stream will go up another level. Taking it to another
Nice
level.
one. Nice one.
I
Love
cannot
it.
copy my own raid message. No! I will be back tomorrow night with more Resident Evil 7,
You will.
which I'm excited about. Jack Baker's fucking me about.
And I will be back on Sunday, as always. Folks, much love. Thank you very much for everything.
And I'll
Much
chat to you
appreciated.
all later.
12-hour
Bye-bye.
stream for Ian tomorrow. All the best.
That's right, 12-hour
Bye.
stream for you. Check in. Bye.